Call the meeting to order. Start with the flag salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're back into an election canvas tiebreaker for the Lehigh City Council position.
Okay, and these were 2 write-ins, and so I've got their names in the cup here, and we just need to have the board, the canvassing board draw one of the names out, and that person will be
Joe could have the privilege.
winner.
We would pass the privilege to Joe.
Joe, would you like to draw that name?
I'll bring it over to you.
If I remember right, there was only three write-ins or something like that.
There's 1.
3 votes.
Okay, and the winner is Kendall Unrau.
Okay.
I'm sure he's excited.
I bet he is.
You have to do a runner-up, just in case they decline. somebody else.
No, because
There's only 2.
we actually we can't. So if they decline, they do that through the city, and then that creates a vacancy, and then the city has to appoint someone. So
And there was 3, so if there was...
there were 2. It was Kendall Unrau and David Terrell. And David Terrell was actually elected to the mayor position.
Right.
So if he would have been elected to this, he would have had to decline one or the other.
So how many names did we
2.
have? 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say 2 names, but I think
Yeah.
there was only 3
Is
votes.
that how Kansas does it? Some states flip a coin.
Well, you could have done that too.
Okay.
Okay, and then I think we just need to adjourn the canvas again.
Okay, I'll make a motion then that we adjourn the election canvas for the tiebreaker for the Lehigh City Council position.
Second.
Moved second by Randy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
3-0.
awesome.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Okay. Administrative business.
First thing I have are the minutes. We have minutes from November 15th and then from November 18th.
I missed my touch screen.
Yeah, that's different, isn't it? I can get you, if anybody wants a mouse, I can order mice.
Order mice? No, it's fine. I just noticed under this light, it's kind of hard to pick up the...
Hi, are you Dave?
Yes, I am.
Oh, you just missed it.
Okay.
Mr. Unrau was selected as the winner.
Delivering the exciting news. Dan.
Don't have to do anything else then.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're
Well,
welcome.
thank you for showing up, though. Appreciate that.
Okay, we have the November 15th minutes. Any discussion? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the November 15th minutes as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Randy. All those in
No,
favor?
no, no.
Nope.
No.
Jonah
Second.
seconded? Okay.
Oh my gosh, you did sound like Randy.
That's what I
I'm gonna have to look.
I wasn't that bad guy.
Seconded by Jonah.
Okay, gotcha.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And we have the minutes of November 18th.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the 18th as written.
I'm,
Okay, moved by Diane, seconded by Randy. No, Jonah. I heard your voice.
I tried.
Oh, okay. Okay, moved by Diane, seconded by Jonah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna have to get me a
5-0.
little sign with a number 2.
Yeah, something, you're gonna.
Speaking lower tone.
That's funny. Okay, here are the 2 pages to sign.
We're going to sharpen up our board chairman up there, just see who's second.
Why, yeah.
He's gonna have to be looking.
I'm gonna have to watch and then write and not look.
Assuming more.
Yeah.
Dave, you and I are going to pick up this end of the table up there ahead of us. Actually, I'll do that later, just to make
the next thing in your packet was a request from Doc Hodson for reimbursement of some dues that he is paying for his role in Marion County EMS Medical Director. And I did make Travis aware of this request. He's requesting a reimbursement of $375.
Well, sounds like maybe he's paid that for several years.
He has.
And my opinion is we need to reimburse him for that. Is there any discussion? I mean, I think he tries to keep up on everything and does a good job of it.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to pay that?
I don't believe so, and if we can get a consensus, that should be enough. Are there any
Good for me.
disagreements about it?
Fine.
Okay.
Everybody okay? All right.
Okay. So I believe that you probably all received an email from Roger Holter with concerns about the electrical engineering for the project. And then we had a response back from Randy Perdue. So I wasn't sure if this is something that you would like to schedule a time on the agenda to discuss, or if you would want to let the engineers, Cobb Valley, just handle this with the city. But I think that if you want to discuss it, we probably need to have all parties present and have the city and have the engineer here also.
I don't know. I mean, the way I read it, it seemed like that Call Valley was communicating with the city, and I don't know if there's a communication. Sounds to me like it's more a communication problem than.
Yeah, I spoke to Roger on this, and the only concern that he really had at this point after receiving the response himself, there is a communication problem there, obviously, but still, he is asking that we simply allow Call Valley or ask Call Valley to communicate with the city heads rather than this particular person.
Yeah.
They were concerned about the 8-hour-a-day power shutdown. They want to work something out with them in that regard, and that's their only concern at this point.
So could we just address that to Call Valley, that they should communicate directly with Roger rather than Clayton, I guess?
Good. We asked Jonah's opinion, is that legal?
The what?
Jonah's opinion?
There's,
Can they use,
Yeah.
I mean, I talked to Roger too.
Chime in.
And Roger's biggest concern was
the,
too big a service.
It's-
We don't need that big a service.
it is over-engineered, and I didn't change hats here. Didn't bid this particular project because we didn't have time, but it is over-engineered in a sense. I did talk to some of the competitors that did bid the project, and they've already looked at ways to value engineer, and it's just typically on a situation like this, usually, to be fair, you award the bid to whoever's low bid and then allow the value engineering to take place rather than going back out again.
So we can save money later on.
Yeah,
before it changes.
so there would probably be some project deducts to go along.
So, in your opinion, should we have Roger and Randy come to the commission?
I think definitely having Roger involved as their point person would be beneficial, because it doesn't get lost in communication that way.
I guess, ask Roger if he'd like to be on an agenda.
Well, I guess my conversation with Roger was obviously incorrect. We'll have to correct him on that.
No, there
then.
was a second part to it.
Well.
You're right.
Well, that's okay, he should inform me of all of it if he was gonna communicate with me, I would have thought.
Yeah, there was 2 points to that. I mean, there was the shutdowns and then there was the over-engineering. And that basically comes down to what the city staff has on hand to correct issues and fix problems if something is to go awry. They don't carry some of this product that they're engineering into this job. So it makes it really hard. And then if a shutdown does happen because of error,
Well,
they're down for weeks
I would
trying to get
certainly
product.
like for us to be on the same page with Marion once we get this project started, because if we're not,
Yeah,
it could be ongoing issues.
I think that's the wisest move.
Well, Roger's concern was the people had to come out of Kansas City to fix it if we didn't have, we have local people.
Local people fix it.
They could if they had smaller service, but the local people don't have the tools.
And
I would like to have Tina's suggestion taken place, because it seems to me as though we all have a different opinion of Roger's concern, since we all spoke to him individually. And it would be nice to know as a group what his concerns are.
Yeah, I think, I'll agree, I agree, try, have Roger come.
Okay, and I believe that if he comes, we also need to have
Randy.
Cobb Valley and possibly the electrical engineer here also. So I'll make arrangements
Good.
to try to get everyone here.
I agree.
Okay.
Randy?
When we started this whole deal, it was to both benefit us, City of Marion, and somewhere we thought around 35, maybe, at the high, 40. And then, is it at 80 something now?
it's way up there. I mean, talking with one of the competitors, it was the amount of inside work that they had was around 30, and the stuff that they had to sub out because they aren't capable of doing it is somewhere around the lines of 100. So it has grown exponentially due to some engineering.
Okay. Well, then I can understand it, because, what we was hearing was, I thought it was a reasonable price. And I'm not against the project by any means, because I think it needs to be done, but whatever it can be done for. And so Roger and the City of Marion still be in control of it. That's what I would say. So that's all the comments I had.
Okay,
We'll make it an agenda item.
okay. Would please?
Okay. Okay. So you have a few kind of larger financial decisions to make coming up. One of them is potentially a lease purchase of transfer station project. And then Bryce has been talking about a potential road project. And so I thought I would just walk you through the funds and also kind of show you, I've shown some of you this before, but maybe just a refresher and for the new people on how to read the reports and what it means. And then I've added a piece to it, which is something that I generally do every year, which is to try to estimate where each fund is. Towards the end of the year, I try to estimate if we have enough cash and enough budget authority in each fund. And generally, in the past, that hasn't come to the board. It's just something that we have done, but I thought that might be helpful as you go forward trying to make some of these decisions on finances. So I've got a stack there with a bunch of paper clips, okay? And so, and then you have a long sheet. The long sheet is the one that I've given you several times this year. That's just a comparison over the years of the cash balances. And so that's kind of, I'm not really going to refer to that, but I wanted you to have it. And then I would expect that maybe after we have our discussion that you might look some of these things over, and if you have questions then later or things that you want more information about, that we could go through it at a different time. So, but on the paperclip stack, the first fund that you see, it says Fund 006 in the top, in the middle. And that is the E911 fund. And then clipped behind that, these are the reports that you get each payday, each month. It's usually about 10 or 12 days after payday that you get those once we close the month. And so it's a 2-page report. And so I kind of wanted to focus first of all on the 2-page report so that you understand what you're looking at when you get these every month in your packets. So if you look at the front page, you'll see the account number. It says 9006-400-701 up in the upper left-hand corner. The print on these is kind of small, but the front page of that, do you see where I am? Is everybody, it's marked page 15 up in the upper right-hand corner. Is everybody on the same
Yep.
page? Okay. So this first page, if you see, so the 9 is always, that's what year we're in, okay? So that number will change with each year. So the 9 means that this is the 2019 account. Next year, it'll have a 0 in front. The 006 is the fund number. So this is Fund 006. We have a lot of funds. And then, do you see where it says 400 in the next 3 number section? Anything that's a 400 in that slot means it's income. Okay, and then those last numbers are gonna vary between funds. And then if you look at the next page, which is page 16 up in the right-hand corner, you see this, the account numbers are slightly different. They have the same year and fund number, but they have 5s at the beginning of that third number set. And those are expenses. So in Marion County, for our fund accounting, the expenses always have 5 at the beginning of that third number set, okay? And then each of those other numbers, 200 behind there is usually a contractual, 300 is commodities, 400 is capital outlay. And when we have a fund that actually has personnel in it, that's usually a 100. So that's our account structure. And then on this particular page of the report for each fund, it's going to show you 2 things. It shows you your budget balance and your actual funds of cash. And so the budget balance, if you look over on the right where it says unencumbered balance, that means that's where we are with the budget, the published budget. Okay, and you can see, well, I'm gonna go over something about that here in a second. And then at the very bottom number on the page, you see where it says current actual cash at the very bottom? That's how much actual cash is on the books. So in Kansas, if you're not familiar with municipal budgets, there are 2 things. You cannot go over your budget amount, and you can't spend more cash than you have. You can't do either one of those things. So what I have done for each fund is I have made a little top sheet to help track that. So if we go to the top sheet that I made, up at the top where it says October and then it says cash balance right in the middle, that as of October 31st is the cash balance in this fund, which is also seen the bottom line of that report where I just showed you. Do you see the cash that I put up there? And then I've got next to it, so on this report, I'm going to be tracking the cash and the budget authority for each fund, okay? So on this particular fund, you may have noticed that it looks like the fund is over budget because it's a negative number on the budget authority remainder. And so I put that at the top of this fund, of the budget column. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because in 2019, for the first time when we prepared our budget, we added a line for cash forward. We used to budget prior to 2019, and Scott put this in because of the tax lid. So that, because we used to budget down to 0, like spending everything out. Obviously, we never wanted anyone to do that, but now with the tax lid, we want departments to really be more aware of what they have to spend and not spend their cash balance. And so I'll show you, I didn't make a copy of the budget, but I'll show you
Have the new commissioners gotten a copy of the budget? Yes. Might be something you want to pick up from clerk's office at some point.
Yeah, I may have sent it, but we'll do, for sure, do that again. You should have the 2019 and the 2020 budgets. Let me find this page. Okay. I'm just gonna bring this around so that you can see. So this is the 2019 budget, and I should have made a copy for this, but I've got a circled number here. that is cash forward 2019 column. And it's $151,014, which is on your sheet under the budget.
That's the whole county.
That's for this fund. Okay, do you see? Because used to be, we didn't put that in there, and we would budget that whole amount out on capital outlay. So like they would have the budget authority to spend that out on a project if they needed to. But this fund doesn't need to spend that out, and so we put the cash forward column in so that the departments can watch their individual line items and not have that big, any kind of cushion in there on their reports. So that actually is part of the budget that they could spend if they needed to. So it's still there. It's still part of their budget authority according to the published budget where we approve the total expenditures. So this, they can still spend it. So the fund is actually not over budget, okay, as it kind of looks like they are. But on a regular year, I mean, they've spent a little bit more than they normally would and what we normally budget for just expenditures, okay? And they did have some kind of major upgrades and projects going on over there this year. And I think I probably have lost just everyone, but I'm sorry. So anyway, we have, what I have done on the sheet this year for the first time is I put expenditures, their expenditures budget, and then I put a carryover budget. And both of those added together actually is what they have the authority to spend by law. So they're not breaking the law if they go over their expenditures budget, okay? Obviously, we don't want them to because when we prepare the budget, we're trying to get them to keep those reserves to help fund the next year, because if you spend every fund down to zero, you have to completely, when you are doing a municipal budget, you have certain things that are income, and it's not very many things. Some, like this particular fund is fees, 911 fees on cell phones, is what funds this. Most funds don't have that, so they'll have maybe a few fees for copies or a few reimbursed things, but the majority of what most of the county funds operate off of is ad valorem tax and motor vehicle tax. And so basically what we do when we're doing municipal budgeting, and I'm sorry if this is too basic, but let me know if
No, keep going.
So what we do with municipal budgeting is we take every income source that we know about that we can estimate, and then we know what the expenses are that we think we need to operate on. And so then we take the difference. So whatever we're short by whatever income that we have, then that's the amount we tax. And under tax lid, we cannot increase the amount we tax by more than the CPI without holding an election. And so it becomes even more critical to conserve those balances in your fund, because if you had a fund that had $100,000 of budget authority, and really for this year you had 50,000 of that we already had carried over. So, and you had to tax 50,000 to be able to meet that whole 100,000 of expenditures. If you actually spend that down to zero, the next year you're going to actually have to tax 100,000 to operate at the same level. And you don't have the authority to do that under the tax lid right now. So you cannot just increase. There are only certain things you can increase for. And so that's just something to keep in mind as we go through this.
You touch on the CPI.
Yes.
What acronym for?
Oh, I'm sorry. Consumer Price Index. And there's a set one that counties use. There's a different one that are used for, so counties and cities, the state is telling us what number we can use. And then all other budgeting taxing authorities use a different one. And like townships are not under, townships, fire districts, cemetery districts, none of them are under the tax lid. Only cities and counties. So the cities and counties are being heavily restricted right now on what we can tax or how much you can increase your tax.
And there's federal rules on 911 funds, what it can be used for. You can't use it for prices roads.
No, you can't. That's correct. That's mandated federally. Okay. So anyway, I just was kind of trying to give you the basics on this fund. So back to your main sheet here, you'll see I've got the column that shows the cash balance and the column that shows the adjusted budget balance. And at the end of October, in this particular fund, we had $157,000, and then we have authority to spend $147,000 of that. Do you see those two columns side by side? So we're estimating, based on pretty good numbers for November, what we think they're spending in November. I did not estimate income because we're going to be conservative on that. I don't know what the income will be. And so whenever, oops, that 1729 should also be in the right column as a negative. Sorry, I was doing these really fast. So that 147 would be lessened by that amount. And so with the bottom number. So when you spend on bills, it affects your cash and your budget because you can only spend so much according to the budget and you can't spend more than you have. So anyway, so we've estimated November. Then December, I estimated 5,000 in expenses and 1,000 in income. I don't have any really idea for sure what their expenses will be, and try to take an average on those funds of what their normal expenses are each month. Sometimes there are some bigger things that come in through the end of the year. So then you could see at the bottom where it says carryover, that is the number that when we planned the budget for 2020, that's the number that where that fund is supposed to start for cash. So if I show you the 2020 budget for this particular fund, that beginning cash number in the right column at the top, that is 155,000. So that's how much we are planning at the time we created the budget for them to have to start with. And that's what the budget was built on. So when we do these, when I track these, I try to make sure that each fund has the carryover they're supposed to have to start the year. If they don't, that means we're starting off short, and they probably won't have enough money in their fund to actually fund their operations to the level that we budgeted. Okay, so you'll see I took out the 155,226 out of this fund. And so we are about just under 4,000 short on cash of where we thought we would be. And but they have plenty of budget authority in the current year. And if we're short on cash, we just won't be able to spend it next year. So this particular fund is fine. There's no issues with this fund. But that's kind of how the sheet works, and I kind of wanted to explain it on a simple fund. Does anybody have questions so far about this? So even though we're starting, looks like our starting cash is going to be lower than we planned, they have a healthy fund balance for what they generally spend out of here. So barring any big projects that they have to do, they should be fine.
So when you say move the 1,700 over to the other column.
It should come out of both columns.
Right, so it will increase that, so that it would be just.
It would be a subtraction. It'd be 145.
Instead of 37, right?
No. No, because it'll come out of both columns.
Oh,
It should have been taken out of both
Okay.
sides. Not added, you see how the 5,000 came out of both sides? Yeah, okay. And that's being conservative on income. We may not end up quite that short. It depends on what comes in for the last 2 months of the year. So then the next one is risk management, and I included a couple extra sheets in here because this is the one that Diane, that you were asking about last meeting. And so you see we do have $438,459 in there.
Yes.
And we are not expecting to spend any of that out. I did give you a page here that you have the 2 reports. And then I gave you a page that has the 2019 and 2020 budgets on it. And then I gave you like a mid-year financial statement sheet that shows the information, because sometimes that's a little easier to read. I can't do that on all funds because I don't have time. So on my tracking sheet though, I'm not sure what report you were looking at last time, Diane, but if we look at the budget sheet that was in your packet, it shows that we transferred, the revenue today that we've transferred in there is the 189,000. And we have not spent any money. So the current cash balance, on your report is $438,000.
Yes, the report that I was looking at still has 248.85, which didn't.
That's our
reflect the-
budget authority. That's what we have authority to spend in 2019. So
Okay.
if you look at the 2019 budget page, which is at the top. So I've got 2019 and 20 both on the same here.
And what page is that? What's the top of that page number say?
It doesn't have a,
At the bottom, it doesn't have a page number at the bottom?
it's in the stack I gave you this
Well,
morning.
yeah,
It's
I
in
know,
the
but I
clip
brought my
behind.
budget, I brought my budget with me, so I was going back to the budget because
Okay.
I was just showing where that extra money was gonna come in at the end of the year.
Okay, well, I've got the copies of both budgets here, so I'll show it here, and then I'll try to find the page number on the actual
That's
budget
fine.
for you.
Don't worry, because I have it here, I just can't find, show it
Okay,
right now.
that's all right. I just thought it might be helpful to see both years on the same page. So, are you there, Diane? Do you have the budget page with both years?
I do right here, yes.
Okay, because I want to make sure that we're all together. So the 2019 budget, we actually had 248, if you look in the middle column at the bottom, at the end of 2018, we had $248,000, 248,846 in the fund at the end of 2018, which we carried over to start 2019 up at the upper right. Do you see that? Do you see the 248,846 beginning cash at the top? So then, last year, when we prepared the budget, Scott was able to capture 189,000 under the tax lid to be set aside for disaster situations. Because that's one of the exemptions that we can claim. And so that money was transferred from the general fund because we were able to tax it, but we had to reserve it for this specific purpose. And so it was moved into risk management, and that was in the 2019 budget, and we have done that transfer this year. So down here, you'll see, under resources available, where we can spend in 2019, we can spend that 248,846 that we started the year with on basically anything. Usually we spend risk-related things out of here, like if we have a big problem on a building or something that's gonna be dangerous and we don't have a way otherwise to pay for it. We paid for the Florence School demolition out of here in 2017 because that was a risk to the county, a liability. And we don't have a different avenue of paying for that. And so then you'll see the other line here, which is expenditures related to disasters of 189,614. So in the current year, we do have 438,000 in there. We can spend 248,000 of that. The other 189 under the tax lid has to be spent only on disaster. Do you see that?
Well, I don't see where it says disasters, I'm trying to find where it's online, just saying for disasters. Maybe I'm on the wrong
It's on the
page.
budget at the top budget page under expenditures.
The
And
transfer.
so
Okay,
right
right here.
here,
I
here's,
see it
we can
related.
spend this on contractual and this on
Okay.
disaster.
Okay.
Okay.
I was picking it up on some of the sheets instead.
Yeah. There's a lot to look at, that's why I'm trying to, I wanna. It may take more time than this too, right? So we can do more of this anytime, but I just wanted to kind of give you an understanding. So then when we prepared the budget for next year, instead, we didn't capture 189,000, but he did capture 40,000 that we can transfer in there next year under the tax lid. And so you'll see that at the next section of the budget at the bottom of the page, you'll see that we're starting, we proposed that we're gonna start the 2020 budget year with the 438,000 beginning cash, because we're not planning to spend that. And then you'll see that we have a transfer from the general fund of 40,892. That's the money specifically allowed under the tax lid for disasters. And so then you'll see in the spending area of the budget that we can, there's that 248,845 again, that we can spend on whatever we need to, risk related, and then that expenditures related to disasters has bumped up because we've added 40,000 to that, and that's all we can spend that on under the tax lid by law. So we do have some funds in there we have $248,845 in there that is potentially available for something. Generally, we wouldn't necessarily spend out of risk management for a building, but it just depends on whether, I mean, the current building, I suppose, is a risk, the way it is, so, anyway.
If the floor fell in, then it would
Exactly.
be a risk.
That's correct. That's correct.
The risk would already be on us.
Right,
It
right.
was presented as being very dangerous now for a long time, and that's why we made some of the adjustments in the way we handle the trash.
Right. So anyway, that's the risk management fund that I had told you I would go over with you at the next meeting. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay.
Well, so that
Ambulance.
it'd be kind of up to interpretation whether it be an emergency situation or
Mhm.
not.
Yep,
Yep.
yep. Okay,
Can you replace bridges if a truck hits the bridge or something?
yes. I would think so, yes. Okay.
That would nuke the account.
Pretty fast.
Now, the disaster money, though, would have to be for a declared disaster, not a Bryce disaster.
If it washes out, you can replace it.
Right, well, it would have to be a declared disaster by the state.
Just like we had this last year.
So the flooding was declared a disaster, so we potentially could use some of those, that 189 that we transferred for rock, but if we get reimbursed by FEMA, then we would have to put whatever we got reimbursed back.
Transfer back.
That's right, that's right. And I think we adjusted the rock budget to cover the majority of that for the current year. All right, so then we have the ambulance fund, which is Fund 102, and basically I've done the same thing here. I've just taken their cash, their expenditures budget, plus their cash carryover budget, and I've estimated their expenses for November and December. In this particular fund, they are supposed to carry over, to start 2020, they're supposed to carry over $498,853. So I'm looking only at the front page right now. And so this fund looks to be in good shape. One other thing to think about with municipal budget and Kansas budget law is you can only spend the money that you tax in the fund you tax it in. You cannot take money from ambulance and spend it on anything else except ambulance. So, and that's how all the funds are. You know, your general funds you can spend on anything.
So at a glance, you can just look at the top page right here, look at the bottom left.
That's the idea,
The bottom
yes,
left
that's
number,
correct.
and
You
as long as
want
it's-
to look at both at the bottom numbers, because the bottom left is cash, the bottom right is budget. And you'll see that a lot of these they operate real close, you know, and we kind of carry over, generally, we try to carry over about the same amount each time.
The carryover amount also is always decided, so if you have no income the first of the next year, you
Mhm.
can operate 2 to 3 months, or
Right.
6 months is what Scott wants.
Scott wants 3 to 6 months, and I can tell you in most of our funds, we're at 3 or less. Some of them are very tight, most of them are right there, right around 3 months. And that's one thing that, this is just this year. I will provide I've got a spreadsheet also that I do that has all the year-end cash balances for the last several years, which I will get ready for you and send out, and that you could potentially compare to where all these funds look like they're gonna end up with cash, and you can see that it's consistent, or they're gonna end up shorter this year, probably, because it has been getting tighter the last couple of years with the tax. But the appraiser fund, that looks in good shape. You know, aging is a smaller fund. That looks to be in good shape. Election, same, it's you go to Fund 118, the Employee Benefits Fund, it's a very large fund, and we did not increase it very much, and we've been spending it down, and it's gonna be a good fund. So it's the one that says 118 at the top, so it's about 4 stacks back. Does everybody have it? So we see our ending cash in October was 441, 474, basically. The November amount is estimated there, and then December is estimated. Scott wanted us to carry over 201,000 in the fund, and we won't have that much to carry over to start next year. We will be short probably between 30,000 and 40,000 of where we want to start next year. So we're not gonna actually have a cash violation in that fund. We'll still have money at the end of the year, just not enough to be where we wanted to be when we start next year. So, and I have been pretty conservative with my estimating, meaning that I'm trying to make sure I'm realistic or overestimating the outflow a little bit, and that I'm underestimating the receipts a little bit, because we don't, when you're conservative in those estimates, then you usually end up here or better. You're not gonna hopefully end up worse than what we've estimated, so. And that's the way we always estimate in budgeting, so. So that's one, that's gonna be a tricky one. Health department, health fund is fine. Noxious weed this year looks better than sometimes, so it looks fine. Yeah, the
You say the
park-
noxious weed looks fine?
noxious weed.
Wasn't we supposed to carry over about 4,000 into the,
Mhm.
we got surplus of 14.
Yeah, at the bottom, you see the 14.
Yeah.
After we carry over, it looks like we'll have, you know, yeah.
Good fun.
Now, I don't know what everybody's bills look like the last month, in December either. I'm guessing, you know, so if something comes in higher or something breaks, that's gonna affect these balances. I've got park here. I did put a larger expense line in December. I know we have to pay out the rest of the utility project, which is coming up, and then I don't know what we'll actually have to pay out for the heated dock. This may or may not be an accurate reflection of that.
So we haven't paid out the water project?
We paid the majority of it. I think we have several $1,000s retainage
Yeah,
left,
I think the last part.
the last
yeah.
payment.
Okay.
So, then, do you all see what Fund 146, that's Road and Bridge? Okay, so at the end of October, the ending balance, cash balance was 2.984 million. The budget for expenditures, this one does not have a carryover budget amount, because when we prepared the budget on this fund, we reduced a bunch of the middle columns, because you'll remember, we had a budget, a gravel for budget, which would, budget for travel, which was 750,000 or 800,000, I believe. And at that point, we had already gone well over it because of the flooding. And the commissioners said, just get rock on all the roads. And so we changed that middle column during the budget prep time to 1.6 million from 750,000, which means that we had to cut other lines. And because we changed that fund so drastically, we actually went in on our system and changed our 2019 budget amounts to the amounts that we changed them to. So that the reports that Bryce is getting shows his actual what he's got available, not having any other numbers that he has to deal with. So there is no carryover budget amount on here, because I've changed all of the numbers for budget authority to match what we did when we prepared the budget, when we made the cuts back in August of this year. So, his November warrants were 188,000 so far. Payroll is gonna be about 90,000. December, his payroll, I put in there at about 105,000 in case he has a couple of retirements. I don't know if he will or not. And that shows, and then we're supposed to carry over 2.204 million in the Road and Bridge Fund to start next year. And so that leaves, Bryce, that leaves about 395,000 for our December expenses, which is a pretty good number, but we gotta make sure that we get all our bills in and that we know what's outstanding. So that last month of the year is pretty critical in tracking and keeping track of the spending. So, based on the changes we made, we didn't do any transfers. We cut out all of the transfers except for one that we'd already made, a special equipment fund, to help cover the gravel cost. We also bumped down the transfers from the general fund to the capital improvement fund to help keep the cash balance at a 3-month level in the general fund. So we're transferring $900,000 less out of the general fund to the road project fund than we normally would. That's because of what our spending level has been this year because of gravel problems and other things that have gone on. So, to protect the general fund.
Could you touch base on one item you said, there were couple of retirements?
Yeah, when
Explain why you would put money in there.
in the
just for
personnel line
retirement.
item, because most of the people that have worked here for 30 or 40 years have a large amount of vacation and or sick leave or comp time built up that they haven't used, and that has to be paid out when they leave. And so it costs more usually to pay, just like with Bud's, you know, I'm sure, I haven't seen his particularly, but you have to pay that out, so.
That's, has been addressed in the past and should be, continue to be addressed for future county operations. Because when I started, it was a lot higher than it is
Mhm.
right now. I mean, because.
We don't pay out sick leave to anybody hired after a certain point
That's what
anymore.
was, one policy we
Mhm.
started.
Yeah.
But I'd like all the commissions to take a look at it and see, because, I mean, my company, it's over with. They don't expect, they're not gonna pay me anything except my retirement, and that's a fund, that's a separate fund that's building on its own.
Right, but see, county employees, as public employees, they don't get overtime if they work overtime. And so we can never, if they earn comp time, there's no way we can't pay that out.
I'm just saying,
So
that
that
the whole picture
particular
can be
one.
looked at
Mhm.
and to come up with a future.
Limit how much they can bank.
Yes, it does.
You know, there are counties that use overtime instead of comp time,
Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to trying to,
you know, and
Go to that.
that, we
It'd be a lot less
have
confusing.
brought that up before because some people just build up huge amounts of comp time, especially in those roads and bridge.
well,
It was just what it was, you know, I
Right.
mean,
Yeah,
it's just.
sure.
well, it's that way
30
for a
years ago.
reason. Public agencies can do that for a reason because they want to be able to save money.
Right.
So let's skip over solid waste. Let's go to 153, which is the transfer station. Does everybody see that one? Okay, so at the end of October, the cash balance was 690,041. The budget authority plus the carryover budget authority. It's a total of 293,000. Estimated warrants and payroll. And then the carryover that we were supposed to have for cash is 535,634. So by the end of the year, it looks like, as you can see at the bottom, our budget should be fine, but it looks like our cash it's not gonna quite cover that full carryover amount. And that's because we paid for a building out of there this year. But it looks like it's gonna be fairly close.
Pretty close.
Yeah. And the transfer station is one that is not funded by tax dollars. It's not by ad valorem tax or motor vehicle tax. It is funded by solid waste assessment fees and then service fees like user fees. Mhm. And it funds, it completely is generally sufficient to carry those things. The next one is Special Bridge. That one looks to be okay depending on how many culverts we buy, so I'll go over that with Bryce, but, then you go to Special Equipment, which is 160. Everybody see that one? So this is one that we transferred only a third of what we normally would transfer into to save money in the Road and Bridge Fund. And, so the cash balance at the end of October was 272, 275. Looks like in November, we're spending 800 and something out of there, and then that leaves, I don't know if we have any outstanding equipment purchases at the moment, but it looks like if you spend 50,000 or less, you will have the amount that you need to carry over for next year. So anything that has already been approved or is looking at needs to be, it looks like 50,000 is gonna be the balance of what could be spent this year in that fund to make our carryover. Does anybody have questions about that?
The skid steer being sold
Mhm.
will directly affect this number?
It will, it depends on when it's sold.
Yeah.
If it doesn't sell until January, no.
And then this number can also help improve the other on Road and Bridge?
No.
It can't be transferred back?
Oh, it could if we needed to, but I don't think we're gonna need to.
Okay.
Just FYI, Purple Wave did tell me that they plan on selling everything by the end of the year. So,
And then we don't generally get the funds immediately.
Right.
So I would guess we're gonna get that money in January.
yeah, I don't know how that works, but he just told me that was our plan to have everything
Okay.
sold by. So.
Okay. The next one, Fund 170, and I don't wanna take too much time, but this is an important one, and it's also an important one for maybe your next discussion with Bryce, this is our road project fund. And this is a big portion of our cash for the county. So if you look at the end of October, we had 4.276 million in that fund. We had budgeted to be able to spend out 5 million this year, but we are shorting the fund about 900,000 because we did not transfer from the general fund because of our cash balance looking like it was dipping. So as of right now, we have not spent anything out of this. We believe that, so we have 4.276 million available to spend. We won't be transferring anything else in there this year. And that could be spent on Nighthawk, if you so choose, or whatever road project that you designate. This is basically just about the only money that I can see in your budget or in the county funds that you could potentially use a portion of for the transfer station. Because this is general fund money, 2 mills every year out of the sales tax. There's a resolution that goes with that that says that has to be used for road projects. And so I would have to figure out how to track that back. But the rest of it is not associated with the resolution, and that's kind of what Scott was talking about when he was here, when he was working on the budget. And that money could potentially be transferred back to the general fund to spend out of there. So, but then if you do that, your road project that you're looking at is over 3 million probably, or around 3 million. So it's a choice. You do a road or you finance your own project. I did not go through and do a full analysis of the general fund because I need to have a better breakout of what's been spent this month, which we won't have till after payday. So I will do that after payday, when I know a little bit more about where we are with the general fund. And I'll also provide a ending cash balance for all funds for multiple years for you to look at, so you can see where each fund normally ends and where it looks like we're gonna end this year. Okay?
Thank you for the information. It's also good for us to know how important those reserves are in the county and trying to maintain them best we can. So, thank you, Pete,
You're welcome.
for all the hard work. Okay, next one on the agenda is transfer station lease purchase discussion and resolution.
Okay.
As you know, when Dave was here last week, he discussed that we would have to pass a resolution in regards to pursuing a lease purchase, which would have to be published in 30 days. So I think,
So Dave Ardberry sent several scenarios to you. You might remember that when Bud was here last week, we talked about contingency. So we have the low bid amount, but the engineering did not include any contingency on that. And so usually we see a percentage that is added in for things that might come up. And so that's not added in here. Of the scenarios that Dave sent, he sent you a scenario of financing or doing a lease purchase for just the project cost, that which the bid amount, which was $1,761,021, and he gave you a 10-year option and a 15-year option. And then he gave you an option of if you added just over 100,000 maybe in for a contingency, because that's what Bud was talking about last week, to where if something comes up, then you've got a little bit of extra authority in there, which that is the scenario of the 1.875 million. Does everybody see that on the sheet with the yellow? And so he gave you estimated figures based on 4% interest, which he felt was high. So he's being conservative on his estimates for 10 and 15 years. And then if you look at the annual payments down here, scenario 1, with just doing the project cost at 10 years, the payment is estimated at $217. Scenario 2 is financing a little bit more, and that is $231. And then if you go to 15 years, it goes to $158 and $168. And so that was in your packet. When we did our budget for the transfer station for 2020, let me find that. We had a line item in there for a building.
when we first started talking about this project, it was our hope that the fees generated by the transfer station would cover most of that payment. Under this scenario, we are some short of being able to do that without raising user fees.
I did want to mention, in the 2020 budget, there is a line item that we put in, building, okay, and we put only $200,000 in that line item. But that actually, you could make, use to cover your payment for the building. So we do have $200,000 budgeted in 2020.
Could that also be used as contingency?
Potentially, it could, but then where are you gonna make your payment out of if you actually, do a lease purchase? You know, you could reduce the amount coming out of the transfer station and pay a portion out of the general fund, like pay half and half, but. So, and I can figure different scenarios if people have questions about any of these.
Well,
Or want something different.
as you all know, it's pretty hard to say there isn't going to be something come up. It's just inevitable. So I think, personally, I feel like we probably need to have some kind of contingency in there.
Now, you don't have to borrow the full amount if you
Right.
don't need it.
Right.
It just gives you the authority to do so if you do need it.
Now, I guess my question is, under a lease purchase, when that's accepted, are we gonna have an option to draw on that? Or is the total amount of that bid gonna come to the county for us to spend?
I think that you could draw up to the amount that you authorize by your resolution. So you could potentially, and in the past, when we've done building projects, we haven't really done one on a lease purchase like this. The one we did do a lease purchase for, like when we did the courthouse windows, for a portion of that. But generally, we have done a bond in the past for larger
I
projects.
was just, my concern was whoever wins that bid, would they set that up as a line of credit to start with, to fund the construction, rather than advancing that whole amount?
It would go to, oh, no, it would go to the county, whatever the amount is that we close on or off, you know,
Okay.
yeah.
So we will have access to all of those funds from get-go.
Mhm. Yeah.
So does the interest amount concern anybody? I mean, $400,000 in interest for 10 years and $614,000 for the 15 years, does that concern anybody? I mean, that's money just down the tubes. $410,000 in interest. And I guess my big thing is, and I'm gonna say this and then I'm done with it, and that is that I still say that we should, Tina's done a fabulous job today, and there is, confirming in my mind, little buckets of money that if we really dug down deep, we should be able to pay for that. But the fact on this thing, we're paying for it in phases, we don't have to come up with that total amount in one lump sum at first. We can pay that out as we go along or whatever, and if we come up short and we need a little more, then we can finance or whatever. But I just think financing it right from the start, knowing those interest rates, that to me is scary. I mean, that's just not the way you run a household, and that's, you know, they say cash is king and debt is dumb. And I worry about too, we already have, you know, strangling our departments by huge payments every year. Road and Bridges got huge payments just on the 330th Road and up there by Tampa and stuff, and if they didn't have those $200,000 payments, that's more money they could spend. So it's kind of chasing your own tail, is what it is. You want to save the cash, but yet you don't have the cash because you have to make the payment. That's just my thoughts, and I'm totally saying that we need to just take the time to look a little deeper to see what we can scratch up with before we throw $400,000 at a minimum.
Well, we'd have to see how that affects our reserves, because it would affect it fairly dramatically, I would guess. And
You did say that the whole amount would be given to the county, it wouldn't be as needed, to where it could be drawn
on a
from.
lease purchase, they would fund the amount that we are requesting.
And they didn't say that there would be a penalty if you were to pay out early. So say the project finished and you didn't need so many dollars that you borrowed, you could return that right away.
We just pay it back.
Yeah. Am I understanding that correctly?
I would have to, we would have to see the documents for that, but if we didn't, what we would be able to do then would be to hold that in a fund here, if we can't pay it right back. I see what you're trying to say, is to avoid paying the interest on it.
Right.
That's a question for,
I'm looking at both of them, both the ideas, just because this is safety net, in case you can't come up with enough buckets, you can keep the project going and fund it.
keep in mind, the only buckets that we have
Right.
are the capital improvement fund, which is the road fund,
I hate
and
to
the
call them
general
buckets,
funds.
because I
It-
know
the general
what they're
funds.
intended for, but
Because the other funds we cannot use for this project.
But again, I brought up some instances over the past couple of months about like the MCC EDC that went broke, okay, so, or I'm sorry, they just
Right,
ran.
that's in the general fund, and so I
Okay.
can have some analysis of the general fund for you after payday.
Yeah.
I don't have that right now.
And that's not
But
coming out of reserves.
I will mention, when we were doing the budget, the way things were looking, we declined to do a $950,000 transfer out of the general fund to the road improvement fund because the cash balances were concerning the budget preparer.
Which was Swindle.
Which was Scott Lloyd, yes. And he's been doing the county's finances for over 30
I
years.
understand all
So
that.
he's very familiar with them.
Yeah, I understand that. And there is a couple county, or he at least mentioned one county that pays everything cash, they don't borrow anything. It took them a while to get to that point, and it was a struggle and a risk.
And under a tax lid though, you cannot increase to be able to, those are the only things you need to remember, so.
But you're saying increase taxes.
No, I'm saying you can't
Increase-
increase taxes.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You're talking about you can't increase taxes.
That's right, and
Right.
that's the way that you build cash
Yeah, well, I
in
don't
a
increase
government.
taxes anyway. I mean, I'm not going down the increasing taxes, no way.
Okay,
So I
so,
got it.
all right, so you understand that would be how we would have to increase
Yeah, and I don't even
our
consider
cash.
increasing taxes, so that
Right.
wasn't in my vocabulary.
Okay,
Well, you know, we've gone over this and over this, the importance of having adequate reserves, because as a governmental unit, if we get a little short, we can't run down to the bank.
But we have protections, we have insurances for everything, and I realize you're gonna say, well, there's a timeframe till the insurances pay, or like FEMA and things like that kick in. But banks use those insurance, potential cash coming in as collateral to get money until you get them, and then you pay them back.
So-
With that,
Personal loans.
it's even, I talk to a lot of bankers, it's like, they do use, in certain situations like that, they do use those, because they know the funds are there. Now, I know in personal loans, like with farmers and things like that, there's different standards, because they don't always have cash reserves or things like that to use. But we're not talking about those personal situations.
That's why we have to have the cash reserves, so.
No, I'm going
I'll
differently.
let Randy go first.
Randy?
Tina, when was the raise in effect into the dues, and for the transfer on our taxes, we raised it to $100? Was that first of last year?
I believe so. I'll have to look.
Do we,
I think this is.
what I'm getting at is, do we know what total income for a year is, and what that total income, what kind of payment we can handle with that fund?
The way the budget was prepared was based on our income with the increased rate, and it looks like we could handle up to $200,000 payment out of the fees. Depending on the operating expenses and
Yes.
what else they need to buy,
Yeah.
you know, that's gonna vary. So, and tipping fees and all of that, so.
But that $200 fee that you're saying we collected,
$100 a year per every
no, I'm saying
resident.
what you're saying, $200,000 is what it's gonna bring in over the course of the year?
No,
It's what we can
What
handle
did
as
you
far
say?
as.
What I said was.
Okay, you can handle that much
That's
money
the
in
amount
for
we
payment.
budgeted,
Right,
right.
okay, so I'm saying if we take it out of our own funds, that same money would come back to the county in a payment.
No.
I'm not saying that we wouldn't make that payment, I'm saying we just pay it back to ourselves.
You can't take it back and pay it back, because that fund is set, that money is set for the transfer, that's why we.
Right,
tax
if we
for that.
spend, I think what Diane is saying, if you spend the road project money on the transfer station, like lending it to yourself, then pay it back at the $200,000 a year out of the transfer station budget, which you could potentially do.
Thank
The
you.
problem being that then you don't have money to do a road project. So if that's the choice you would make, to do it that way.
But that's where we're at right now, making that choice, right?
Well, the road, yes, it is. I mean, that's your choice to make as a board. The history of that capital improvement fund, it was established to build over time. So you build for several years and you do a big project and it goes down. And then you build for several more years and then you do a big project. And that was with the intent of not having to finance every project that we did for roads. So to be able to pay cash for some of those big expensive projects.
We didn't have the money in the bank account to do the Tampa Road project
No.
in 4 miles, whatever it is, 3 miles into town or 4 miles? 4 miles into town. We didn't have the money there, that just happened to be a special loan or something.
It was a revolving loan program at the
Revolving loan
time.
account. And so we was able to go ahead and make the payments on that, and they were still, like you said, it's this year, the last year,
I
or
think it was this year.
It's either this year or next year.
one of the two.
Yes, $200 and some thousand a year.
And then
234.
So
Yeah.
that's how that project come about. And then when we did 330th, we'd been saving money up, and when we come in, we went ahead and paid for that in cash.
Right.
And so, and you say you don't operate at home like that? Well,
I don't. Just because it's
Well-
on sale, I don't go buy it.
well, no,
And
I
I
didn't
don't
say
go
that.
finance
I
it
just
just
said that
because interest
in
rates are
today's
low.
world, you can't go buy things as a normal person unless you have a loan. I mean,
No, that's not true.
Well, maybe your life's different than mine, but.
Well, if
What
it's a
you
capital
pay down and how you spend
purchase,
it.
we're talking about capital purchases.
Right.
Yeah, I'm talking about, you don't buy a house without having a loan, you don't do other things, you don't buy cars unless some people do. I mean, if they're blessed, they're blessed, but a lot of us don't have. So, a loan is just nothing but trying to, and yes, it does cost money, I agree. But to get a project accomplished without hurting the rest of our budget is something that's just, interest is gonna be there. I mean, I don't care what you do. It's-
And I understand what you're saying, Randy, and my only dispute to that is the average responsible family. And I know of several of them, well, I live with myself, you know, yes, I had to make capital improvement, but I always save. I always had savings. Sometimes I had to take my savings down to nothing because stuff happened. And yeah, there for a little while, you live on the edge, but you start building back up, back up, back up. And ultimately, the end result is the best. Because when you strap yourself for payments, you're just giving money away.
I think the county can't live on the edge of, it's illegal.
Okay, so, I wasn't talking about
Well,
that, I'm
we
talking
know
about
it's,
myself.
it's a large expenditure, and we would hope, don't know, that maybe we'll get a more favorable rate than that, to bring that down. But, getting back to where we need to be, if we're gonna do that, we need to pass a resolution.
Got to, in order to get out to it, go ahead.
Still going back in the middle of some things here. I mean, are we absolutely certain that the amount, this whole amount needs to be borrowed? Just because we can't pay back early?
I didn't say we can't pay back early. I don't know the answer.
Okay, and that's my main concern, is if we could pay back early, then we can still meet in the middle and pay early and find funds and do stuff. But if we can't pay back early, then we really need to iron down how much we need to borrow. Because that's gonna affect the amount of interest in the end.
Right, I mean, we could go for the full amount with contingency, and we're gonna pay on that amount. Or we can stick with the engineer's estimate. But, you know, history has told us from other projects
At 20%.
that there's gonna be some contingency.
And yeah, and I would think it would be highly irresponsible not to look at the two contingency columns, regardless of whatever dollar amount we come to a conclusion on. The contingency needs to be there because it always happens. It always comes to get you.
Well, I'd be in favor of going ahead with the resolution, get it out to the public, tell them what we're gonna do.
For which amount and what number of years, that's what the commission needs to,
Right.
besides whether to do it or not, you also need to decide what amount and how many years. And then we can have the resolution, I can get the resolution before the end of the meeting to finalize for it.
Well, you know, I'd probably go along with the scenario number 4 with the contingency on 15-year lease purchase.
Explain the total on contingency, what is the contingency?
The contingency is, so if you see in 2 of those columns, the amount of the project cost is financed at 1.761. On the 2 columns that have the 1.875 finance, that's including a contingency, because the 1.761 is the actual bid.
That's the actual.
You're included in the bid, what you do.
Yes, it's just included in the, you've bumped the amount financed to cover that contingency, potential contingency.
So in that column, you're looking at 1/3 of the total project cost and interest. $654,000.
But you can pay it off early.
Yeah, if it could be paid off early, then that interest is not quite as weighing.
And there's also a potential that we would get a lower rate than 4% as well when we bid that.
Well, the 15-year thing over the 10 has got to be, to me, Ken, I think the 15-year has, that the 10-year deal is just probably out of our reach.
Well, based on what we've been talking
Yeah.
about, you know, without raising user fees,
Yeah.
I don't see that that's a possibility. And we just did that last year.
You always pay more
And
if you have that.
whether you call it a fee or not, it's taxed.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tax, right.
That's kind of where I'm at on it at this point.
I was just trying to see what my contingency would do for me, and so that's fine, like what Jonah said too, is if looks like it can't be paid back by island. I'd probably be in favor of that too. Anybody else have any
And, you know,
discussion?
we would, after the resolution has run its term and we get some bids, we can look at those contracts and see.
So at that time.
Right,
would
we can
know.
see
Okay,
if
so this doesn't obligate
if that
us.
verbiage is in there or not.
Okay. That was my main concern.
Right.
I don't want to be obligated.
Our
if
issue
we don't-
today, is whether we want to pass a resolution to go that direction.
And if it all looks ugly, what will we do? We may back up and do something different, I guess.
Well, we won't know until we get all of the
Right.
documents and see if we have interest in bids and what kind of rate we're looking at. And, I mean, right now, we just have to publish it,
Yeah.
And this is a maximum,
well, at the maximum.
right?
Any other discussion?
Yep, any other discussion from the commission? So we need to act on this and then act on the resolution?
I think if you could do a motion and a vote on which scenario to go with, and then we'll get the resolution finalized for you before the end of the meeting, and then you would need to take action on the resolution.
Okay. I'll go ahead and make a motion to publish a resolution for the scenario number 4, 1.875 million, 15-year lease purchase for the transfer station construction.
Second.
Randy, I got you that on that second. Been moved and
He
seconded.
was looking at you.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
4-1.
Okay. So we can get that ready and have it for action with it later.
Okay. Is Isaac here?
Yep.
Yeah.
You wanna go ahead?
You can go on, it doesn't matter to me which way we do first, whatever you want to.
You want to see that one?
Morning, Isaac.
Morning. So I'm in here for a couple different reasons. The first one, I'll just start with the heated dock. James with K-Camp did get back with me, and I'll give you, just sort of pass it, you can pass it down by hand. So we were approved for $177,020 for the dock replacement. I got that email late Friday. There's, on the front's the email from James, pretty much explaining how the payments will work if we want to move forward with this. And then behind that are 3 bids that we received from the 3 separate contractors. We have Home Resorts, Finn's Boat Docks, and Max Docks. There's, going through them, there's a couple of things that kind of caught my attention. The one that the insurance accepted or based their quote off of was Home Resorts, which I believe is that first quote. So like with his, he did have in that quote demo of the existing dock, so getting rid of that, and construction of a new one. With him, I've talked to him briefly. In there, he doesn't have anything about a warranty. He said that on most of his work, it says it depends. It's usually like 3 to 5 year warranty. Ben's Boat Docks, which is the second one there, came in a lot higher at $191,800, but his docks come with a 25-year warranty. For any kind of damage or issues, he fully covers everything for the first 25 years. The third quote, Max Docks, was $155,000, but with him, he just does structure work. So his quote came in quite a bit lower, but if you see there, and I think he has it written there, it excludes all the electrical work and gas work. That's something that he said he doesn't have knowledge on. He said he could hire a contractor to come in and do that, but he does not do that work. He just does the structural work. And he said all of his docks come with a 15-year warranty. So Ben's Boat Docks and Max Docks, their warranty is a lot better than the Home Resorts, but they're just different for their own reasons, I think. Max Docks, they use a concrete structure for the flooring. It's like a light concrete, so that would be your base. Ben's boat docks, he was gonna do a composite flooring, which is what his quote was for. And Home Resorts was looking at, as of now, kind of like it's almost like the boat dock that we got down from the office, that plastic, I'm trying to think of what they call those.
Ollie?
Yes, that polyplastic, yeah. But James got back to me, he said, I told him I was coming in and talk to you guys today. He said as soon as we're ready, he can send that first check. It's a 50% first check. The county is responsible for $5,000 deductible out of the county's pocket if we do want to move forward with this. And then on completion of the dock, we receive that other 50% check. I know because we did a conference call with the 3 bidders and himself on Friday. He said if there is any salvage value to the dock, that he would want the contractor to submit a check once the project was all completed for salvage value, which as of now, the 3 contractors said it's probably not gonna be anything. They said they won't really know until they look under and see if that's the steel or whatever is worth saving, but really that would be the only value in it to salvage. And I don't know, but I've talked to a couple people and I think all that under there is pretty rusty. So.
A lot of years.
Yes, a lot of years.
So the insurance is based off of that first estimate?
Yes, that is the estimate he based it off of, and his reasoning for that is that it's the most complete, like with Max, that no electric and the no heat, he went ahead and crossed that out, and then on Ben's, he just didn't go with that one because it was quite a bit higher than the other 2, but that's where he came up with that 177.20.
And that includes all the demo, right?
Yes, sir, it does. It does include the demo. I don't think he's 100% sure how he's gonna go about it yet, but it does include the demo.
What kind of warranty work would it be 5 years from now?
Say that again?
What kind of warranty work would it be 5 or 10 years from now?
See, and that's,
What the float cracks?
What floats me out of?
well, and that was one question I guess not really a question, but one concern, with, really my only concern with the Home Resorts bid is just the dock structure, because he was wanting to go more towards that poly dock system, which I don't know, I don't have a lot of knowledge on it. I guess I have a hard time picturing a building sitting on top of that poly dock system. And he said he's never done it before, you know, and so that did raise some suspicion to me, seeing the one that we have down from the office, which, you know, it doesn't have a structure on it, but with the wave action, those docks in between move. And I kind of brought that up to him when he was talking to me about it, and he said that he thinks he could get it to go without, but I don't know.
Well, if the substructure is solid,
Well, and I guess that's,
I mean, the whole thing wouldn't be,
and that's what I need
twisting.
to figure out, because with those poly docks, there really is no substructure. It's just those docks, those little plastic, I mean, they're good sized docks, but they have these little connectors that hook in between and it holds them together. And they just sit on top of the water. So there is no steel frame or anything that goes along with them. And that was the only thing that I had a question about for him, which I haven't got to get him a real answer since I just got this call late Friday. But I'm kind of skeptical about it, because he said he's never done it. I mean, the other 2 have a solid steel frame, which is what we have now. Now, whether you can build a steel frame like that and put the poly dock on top of it, I don't know. If you can, I've never seen anything like that. Because the way we have a booklet and everything with those poly docks, it's just they call it like an H-bone connector. It's a plastic piece that sits down there almost like a puzzle, and there's 3 of them that hold the separate 4x6 plastic poly floats together. I don't know. That was the only concern that I had about that quote that makes it separate from the other 2, is just that the dock system, that what he was looking at. And
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's something I can ask him and try to get more information on it, or I could possibly ask him to see if we could go the other route with an actual, you know, steel frame and flooring opposed to that.
That changed the bid though.
Well, and that's what I was gonna see, how much it would change it.
You've answered one of my questions, is this first guy says, yeah, I've never done it before. What about the other two?
The other two, I do have,
I'd like to see a project. I mean, I'd like to see what.
this is
what
Ben's,
they've done.
this is his, he brought me that just on Friday after I told him I was coming in here. He seems very competent, he's done a lot. Mac has done a lot as well. Mac's boat docks, if you look at the bottom, he's one. He was actually the one bidder that came in out of state. He does build on Lake of the Ozarks. The only thing with him is his was quite a bit lower. His structures are all good, but he just doesn't run the electric and the gas. Which was why his bid was significantly lower than the other two, because it does not include that. I don't know what it would cost to run that. I mean, his bid is $22,000 below what the value from
You know, I'm
insurance
just
is coming
wondering,
in.
you know, what would the demo and that electrical part cost us? 'Cause
Right.
About 20 to 25,000.
Is that what it would be about?
Yeah.
For the electrical,
No, for the demo and the electrical and the heating.
well,
I mean, you're running plus or minus from the other bid.
so you had another 20,
5%.
you'd be 180,000. So we'd
Can you
be
use
pretty
it?
close.
Can you use any of the grant? Remember, there's a grant that you could apply for?
Yes.
Could we potentially apply for the grant to help supplement?
I do think that we could. I talked to Craig about it, and he said that there is no rule, which you're talking about that state
Yeah.
grant, yeah.
Yeah.
He said there is no rule, you know, against using it with insurance or another grant. I don't know if it's necessarily an issue, but that, I think it's June 1st of 2020 would be our chance to do that, if we wanted to do that. And that's, I believe it was 45, they'll spend $40,000, up to $40,000 or 75% of a project, whichever comes first. If that was something that the commission would be interested in.
Can they do it retroactively though, if you've already done the project?
That I don't know. I would
Because I
have
don't
to
know
check.
that you'd wanna wait.
Right.
Because really the demo and the electrical work, that could be hired locally, as far as that goes.
Well, and that's was another thing that I was wondering is, because I mean, as far as the demo goes, you know, the dock is pretty much completely detached right now. And there's a spot over there on it's on the east side of the dam that I'm not so sure we couldn't just disconnect the rest of that dock, float it over there with a couple of boats and just pull it up and demo it from the shore right there. You know, and that was kind of my thing, that we could save a lot of money doing it that way.
Yeah, probably about 10 grand.
Yeah, and it might be a little slower, but I don't think it would be hard for us to get that dock out of there if we did it that way, opposed to trying to crane it up right where it's at and pull it up on the shore there by where the dock's located now. But if we just moved it over there to that east side by that boat ramp, and I mean, it's a real gradual slope and it's nothing but grass.
I think that's something you need to talk to K-Camp though about.
Yeah, well, and I did
They
talk.
may say, no way.
I did talk to him about, because looked at the possibility of trying to swing that out, because we had a couple of aerators on the sides, and that one side of the dock was pushed up against the shore, and we wanted to get those aerators off of there. And so I emailed him on Monday of last week, asking him if we could move it. And he said at this point, we can do whatever we want to with it. The demo was not actually something that I asked for in the bid. He asked me just to include what it would cost for a new one. Which I believe those two, Mac's boat docks and Ben's boat docks, neither of those two included demo. Home Resorts, Chuck with Home Resorts, he went ahead and included it, even though it was something that wasn't supposed to actually be included in the bid. But James made it seem like we can do, as far as the demo goes, whatever we want to do. And I can double check that with him. But
I'm just wondering if we put that demo out on bid, if we'd have any interest.
be some scrappers.
Yeah. And I don't know what it actually, what
And
condition it's in
Did
underneath
K-Camp
it.
have any time limit on, we need to get started, or we need to do this, or anything?
No, and that was a conversation we had in the conference call, and according to him, it is completely up to the county as far as a timeline, work starts, work finish. Like he said, he'll mail that check as soon as we say that we're gonna do it, and then once the project is completed, he'll mail that other check. But he said as far as the timeline goes, that's completely up to the county.
So it might be worth our time to see if we can take bids on demoing the thing.
You're saying Ben doesn't have demo news? Ben's
Ben, I do not believe he does.
is just appealing, being with a warranty.
And that
Having
was
somebody
yes.
as local as you can get them, because it's so hard to get people back and
Yes.
the further away they are.
Right. And talking to both Ben and Mac and Chuck, they all seem like they are willing and have time to start as soon as we're ready. I know at least Ben and Mac, they said that what they would probably do is start building a frame off-site, and then bring in the framework, put it together, and then build the structure when it's actually on the water, instead of trying to build it on shore and then putting it in from there. And like I said, the gentleman from Home Resorts, he was looking at some possibilities with that poly dock system at the moment.
As far as,
Jason, what route you wanna take?
structure wise, it seemed like you're not confident in the first bid.
Yeah, and I just have a lot of questions about it, I guess. I've never seen anything like what we're wanting with that polydock system, and that's only where my questions come up. He is a polydock dealer, and so I think that's why he wants to go that route opposed to a regular structural route. Now, like I said, I don't know if he could go the structural route if, I told him that's the way, we'd like to see it, and if he could, I don't know how much that would affect his original bid. That is something I could ask him, but I just haven't.
Isaac, does all of these plan to re-anchor it for us?
Yes.
And anchor it down?
Yes.
That's part of their thing.
I think, Randy, because right now those pilings that are coming out that are holding that dock, I think they're just as rusted as the beams that broke that held it up. I'm guessing they were put in at the same time, if not before.
Could be.
And they look like they're probably about in that same condition.
Also, I see on one of the bids, I don't know which one it is a 15-year guarantee on
That is max, I believe.
That's a max?
Yeah, max docks.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he has that 15-year warranty, and then Ben, he has a 25-year warranty.
Well, one of my questions would be is because we've been faced with it since the dock's been here for a while, so we've always been worried about whether the ones underneath of it was good and stuff like that. 15 years from now, how are we gonna replace a dock? Or how are we gonna float is what I'm getting at is,
Yes.
Is any of this needs to be looked at to where future down the road that, we can slip and float in and out somehow? I don't know, I'm just.
And I'm talking to, actually all three of them claim that it can be done. They have some kind of dock jack that actually goes in the water.
Probably an airbag.
Yeah, it's something like that, and it can raise it up enough. Now, they said that it's usually something that they can't do, all the floats at once, but it's not too hard for them to pull one out and replace it. Yeah, because now, there's not they can't put in the styrofoam, so it's gonna be that, that poly-covered plastic, yeah.
But it's pretty neat when they do those airbags and they floated the dock that went through Louisiana down there within the working area that I worked on, watched it lifted up with airbags, and they destroyed it, but it's just a neat process how to
Yeah,
do that.
that's, Well, commission, what's your wishes?
To be fair, apples for apples, if you're gonna suggest a bid for demo and a bid for electrical and a bid for heating, it probably needs to go rebid with those exclusions put across to all three. And then that way that they're all getting a fair
The same.
opportunity.
Right.
Is anybody worried about the plastic docking system down there? I'm not a voter. I do like
Guess
some.
what, that's all they use anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a big thing, and a lot of people do, go with that poly system. And like I said, the only concern I had was the structure part and the fact that he said he's never done it. And that's something I can ask him, maybe he did say that, but he has confidence that it will work. That's just how I felt when I was talking to him about it, that I wasn't too sure, how it would work.
Well, on the old one, I've never spent hours out there by any means, just considerable number of times visited with both the operators and stuff in the last 30 years. But didn't it feel when the wave was windy, didn't it feel pretty secure?
Yeah,
That, I mean, it wasn't sitting there doing this.
Right.
One of my concerns about something that might be linked together about the docks that you're talking about down there is, I don't want the thing sitting there doing this.
Well, and that's what I guess my main question was, is how you would have a structure on there that does that.
Yeah.
Because you would think, I don't know, but with the wave action, because
It'll
those,
tear itself apart.
Well,
Yeah.
It's flexing.
and yeah, I don't know,
Make the screws loose.
and I didn't know about
I mean, look at-
screwing a building structure down into that poly system, which is nothing but an air-filled plastic float. And so I don't know how you would secure a structure on there, but, he probably knows more about it than I do. And so I can, if we did open it to rebid, I could talk to him about that and try to get a little more answers. But, yeah, that was really the only concern with any of the bids that I had. I just wasn't 100% confident in it, I guess.
Do we want to go ahead and accept a bid, and if we accept one without demo, try to get bids on the demo? What if we don't get any bids? But conceivably we would,
I really don't see no reason why you couldn't float the thing across and do what Isaac said. If you get a couple people, a couple winch trucks, pull it, whether it falls
Yeah, but I
apart.
mean, even over there, it's gonna have to be demoed.
Yeah, over on the side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And over in that flat area over there, the rest of this winter, why,
It's good, you gotta get it out of the way.
yeah.
Well, and that was
Tear
gonna
it
be my
apart
other
there.
question, yeah, because, it's sitting there right now and people go out.
I mean, it would be nice if it was out of the way so that other people could start,
Yeah.
since they said they could. I mean, it'd be nice if they had that ready next spring, Bryce.
Well, as my fellow engineer counterpart here said, we could move it over there and wait till the next flood and then just help itself to the spillway. Or, I was gonna say, is we actually have a D6 and a Caterpillar that I'm sure we could pull it up onto the ground.
D6 and pull it up easy.
So anyway, we
It
at
might
least get up
rip
on
it
the
apart
water.
if you're pulling it up, but that's kind of the intent anyway.
And, I mean, I'm not saying that we need anything else to do, but I mean, you're talking demo, if there's really not that much in there, we got an excavator and we can load it up and take it off in a dumpster somewhere.
Well,
So-
it concerns me a little bit if you say, okay, guy, you got two guys out here with 200 horsepower engines, and all of a sudden one of them bogs down and sinks.
Well, it won't sink over there, but I mean, that's pretty
But I
solid,
mean,
but I'm just
you got
saying
some,
that's.
if you get some people to pull it with boats, you got some liability.
Well, the boats at least get it over there, we could pull it up on the shore. I mean, I don't know how it's gonna, I don't know how easy that thing moves, but it might take some pretty good sized horsepower to get that thing over there.
Over there.
But I don't know. But anyway, I kinda like the idea of waiting for the flood, but I don't really wanna have any more floods either, so. But anyway.
But like I brought up, I mean, there's gonna be some liability in moving that thing across the water.
Just give us, sign a waiver.
Well, you have to have,
Sign waivers is good.
you have to have
Good as a
insurance or
signature.
whatever else,
Well,
you know.
let me ask you this, what's the difference between scooting it towards a little farther closer to the dam and taking it right out in that corner? Right there where it's at, pulling it up.
Hit the rocks.
Too many
Yeah,
rocks.
Yeah.
plus,
I was gonna
plus
be
you
able to
got,
bring it up over the
plus you got a pretty
grade.
good slope you'd be
Yeah,
bringing up
pretty
there.
good
We're
slope.
over there on that, that's pretty flat over there.
Yeah, that's
He's
what I
taking
like
it over the
about
dock.
that, yeah.
Over by the spillway.
We'd have a lot more
it's
room
flat.
to work with and stuff like that, so, but, like I said, I'm not volunteering this, I'm just, you know.
You are once we get it over there.
Well, yeah, I just,
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. I'm just slowly concerned about the liability of hiring some guys with boats.
yeah. Isaac got a big oar? Come
I
on.
mean, I've got a boat, but I've never pulled anything that big.
Well, I was gonna say, you'd almost have to use pontoon boats.
Yeah, and that-
I mean, that'd
yeah.
be the safest. You could actually almost push it then.
And I think that'd probably be the best way to do it.
Don't you have a pontoon boat?
No, I don't.
Well,
Sorry.
I think you have some relations.
You had some people that have volunteered to do
I was gonna
that?
say, just a family reunion.
Everybody grab a rope, let's go.
You could just do that with the oars then. You could have everybody in the family an oar and you have it over there in no time.
Isaac, I mean, have you talked to anybody that would be willing to do that?
I have actually.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Well, I've talked to people that have wanted to do it already,
Yeah.
and you know, it's just been a lot of no. We're wanting to try to swing it back into place. You know, I have people in there every day talking about it.
Okay, okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, I
You
think
got a
if it
handle
was-
on that.
Yeah, I think if it was something that we wanted to do, I don't think finding volunteers with boats would be a problem.
So, what happens if it does go out in the middle and sinks?
That
Don't
would-
don't it become fish bait material, I mean, fish habitat then?
Yeah, pretty much.
Take anything valuable out before you move it.
Is it,
Yes.
is it deep enough to bury out
Yeah.
there?
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
I don't
the
have
floats,
these
are the floats that's under.
Yeah, it's not gonna sink.
Yeah, it's styrofoam,
It's
and I
styrofoam
think,
floats,
I
it
don't
won't
know
sink.
when, there's a handful of those newer floats under it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long ago they did that. I think there's 5 or 6 of them that it looks like they were replaced at some point. But yeah, besides that, it's all still out of that old styrofoam.
Yeah. Almost as other ones fill up with water. Drag it down.
Commission, it's up to us to make a decision here.
Guess I'd like to see all of them rebid with the same exclusions.
Okay. And would that include demo
Yeah. And then,
and electric
and heating. As far as I can tell, that would put them all semi.
Yeah, that's really the only
That
big
way-
differences was demo, and then that one bid did not have the electric and heat added onto it as
That way
well.
you can rate them all as, apples for apples on structure.
Did you say the first one was an informal warranty or?
Pretty much at this
Okay,
moment,
that
yeah.
might be something to say,
Yeah.
put that on paper as to what they do.
But wouldn't we be saving some money by just letting road and bridge chunks tear it apart and haul it off?
Yeah, you would also need to get, bids for
With-
demo
with-
if you can, and bids for electrical if you can, and bids for heating and air if you can. And then you can weigh out whether or not you wanna accept that demo bid or do it yourself.
Commission, agreement?
I say, can I ask a question on that? What if you put out that revised bid and had it at alternates for those other things, and then you could always then award to somebody to do the electrical if you couldn't find a local or the heating to fit that same price, if you give those to those alternates. Somebody doesn't have to bid those alternates to do the demo and the electrical like that other one did, but that way give you guys more options to look at.
You okay with that, Isaac?
I'm okay with that, yeah.
So just take them out of the base bid and then just have some alternate bids on the redo.
Okay, guess we'll wait for you to come back to us now.
Okay, that works.
Okay.
I'll go with Jonah there on that. I think it's wise to take a look at the whole thing. See if we can get it, maybe save some cost on demo and things too.
Okay. What else do you have for us?
And then my other thing is I was going to ask the commission if we could get some bids for tree trimming. There's a handful of trees that we have that are dead that are overhanging Lakeshore Drive. And a couple of them as low as the point where I had a couple campers actually scrape the top of their campers on them this year. I've talked to Bryce about the bucket truck. I think it has hydraulic issues and you have to be certified.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
And
like
so,
just a safety issue.
yeah, it's, so for the meantime, it is something I would like to take down now rather than later. We did have one fall this summer, on a windy day, and it landed right across Lake Shore and hit a mailbox on the other side. Thankfully, there's nobody underneath it, but that's kind of my main concern, is just if it happened to be the wrong place, wrong time, a lot of that stuff could fall onto a vehicle underneath there. And that's really, as far as the trimming goes right now, what we're looking at, pretty much all I'm looking to do is go around and get everything cut off that's overhanging Lake Shore, yeah.
As long as you have budget authority.
Yes.
Yeah, always recommend getting bids.
Yeah.
See, yeah, get
So
some
you
big,
can go
get
along
some-
and paint all those trees red or something, and so
Yeah,
that everybody
that's-
knows exactly what you want?
Yes.
You only accept license and bonded bids, right? For tree trimming?
Yeah, yeah. Which this will be the second time that we did a little project last year in the campground, and then this would be the other. And it's not a whole lot, it's really not, but they're the ones that are hanging over, there's a handful of them that are dead. And so that was my only other thing, was just to get permission to do that.
Did you get rid of all the dead ones out of picnic areas?
Pretty much, there's still a handful of them, which we just really started that last week, going through and doing that. There's a handful of dead ones that we wanna get down or that have fallen down, that we just need to clean up. But a lot of that stuff we could just do by ourselves. There's just, this stuff that's high up, without a bucket truck or anything like that, we just really can't get to them safely. But yeah, there's still quite a bit of cleanup to do out there.
I don't have no problem with him putting the bids
I don't
together
have
and
any
bringing them
problem
back to
with
us.
Okay.
Actually, then
Permission okay?
take a look at your
Everybody?
budget.
And that was it for me.
Yeah, that's what Darren's.
I'm just tagging on with him here today.
Thank you, Isaac.
Okay, so what I'm here for today is, put you on the screen, what was in your packet is the final retainage release on the RV water lines in the RV area out there. And so we were holding $5,924.72 as final retainage. The one-year warranty period, and I told Isaac this earlier so we can watch for it too, and we'll check it again also, is actually the middle to end of May. So we'll go back and double check. There's already been one little leak. The contractor came back in and fixed, no problem. Right now, through this fall so far, we haven't seen any other settlements, which is what we really like to watch for too. So we'll keep an eye on that again, check it again in the April timeframe, and get bid stickers back down here if we do see anything. Otherwise, Josh from Improvement District 2 blew out the system in the RV area back in first part of November, late October, early November. Didn't have any problems. It blew out like a dream. The way we have it set up now, it takes him about 15 minutes and it's clear. So it went really fast. Fast as he could walk around and open and shut valves. So he hooks up one compressor in one location, done. And all the trailer houses that got hooked up to the new system, there was a few complaints in just getting mindset switched over, but then as everybody saw how the new connections was and everything, it didn't sound like he had too many issues from anybody, so.
Okay.
So this is just final retainage release to make final payment.
Okay, we got final estimate there, $5,024.72.
924.
$5,924.72. I'd make a motion to go ahead and approve final payment on that water project.
Second.
Seconded by Jonah. All those in favor? Aye. I vote.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, Kenzo, have you go ahead and sign the bottom line?
I'll get you the signed copy from them too.
Okay.
I mean, he hasn't sent it back to me yet, so I know it's coming. The kid signs that one. If you scan that one in and email it to me, I'll get them to sign that one. And that way we'll have just one copy of everybody's.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Good job.
Okay, Bryce?
All right, first thing I wanted to go over is, I met with the Doyle Creek watershed, and they are looking to do a couple projects in the county, and basically they're asking for county support. I haven't officially agreed to it, but I'm guessing that won't be a problem. I've got a copy for each one of these if you want to look at. The three locations they were looking at was north of 250th and Blue Stem. We've got a little swerve in the road. They're looking to build a watershed project upstream, and basically are looking to us to come up with ideas to replace a culvert. As what the picture shows on there, I've got little pins we can build a new structure basically without doing anything with the existing road and straighten out the road and stuff to that effect. This is, according to their project, pretty much a definite. They have to get this next year. So what we would do is we'd go out and do the work and they would reimburse us basically for any work we did through there. So we could either put a new concrete culvert in there or either railroad tank cars, whatever else. But we can help out the situation. The only thing we'd really have to work on, which really is very little extra cost, whatever else, is part of the reason that they want to do this is right now we have some erosion on the bottom side of the culvert. And they want to try to get rid of all that, being all the environmental aspects of stuff like that they want critters or whatever else basically to go straight through there without having to go through water or whatever else. So you do one of two things. You just bury a culvert a foot deeper or whatever else, put your flow line a foot deeper, put dirt across there so that they're allowed to go straight across. Not a big deal, but I think we could probably, with the culvert and the dirt and everything else, probably get by for $70,000 to $100,000, somewhere around there. I don't know for sure. All they're really looking for is a letter of support, and that's what the letter is on the front, was basically just a letter that he wrote up saying that yes, Marion County is in agreement with doing this kind of work, and like I said, we'll work out all the deals. The other two spots are down on 70th, which I have marked there also. Basically just replace the culverts down there. Both culverts have erosion on the bottom side of them, and as far as the county goes, it'd be a pretty simple fix, just to go in there, remove the culverts, either put in a new precast or cast in place, or even a big couple pipes. Like I said, pretty simple on the same road. It just been a matter of the house in between providing access while we did one or the other. They basically said they'd rather do one or the other, but he said if we propose to go back and do them both under the same project, they would probably do that. So the only thing we looked at was 80th west of Indigo. Really bad area. That got hit hard by floods this year. We had 3 or 4 places where the water was across the road, springs and everything else. It's passable, but what they're also looking at that, and I'll just say this, if we do go in there and do work, is to work with them, is if we go in there and get this thing rebuilt the way it probably was a while back, new culvert, stuff like that, that would actually go into their like banking system that the water districts have with the federal government, Corps of Engineers, stuff like that. By doing this work and helping control erosion and stuff like that, it credits the conservation district, plus it helps us in the meantime, like straighten out the road. But if we, that's how they end up paying for these projects that we do, is by getting those credits from the federal government. So by doing that project there, we can work with it, because they're in the process of basically setting up a flood bank or whatever they call it. They want to build like 5 watershed dams basically from their north through those miles to there, because that area got hit so hard with the floods. So like I said, basically all they're looking for is the letter of support. So if you guys want to look it over, I mean, it's just a matter. It's wouldn't really cost us anything to do all this stuff, and we get a tremendous benefit for it too. So, but I guess any questions or whatever else, but.
They're being proactive.
Well, that's a look at it. Like I said, we could, some of these pipes, they've got erosion issues that we could go in and we could put a whole bunch of riprap down at the bottom of them, but are really not solving the problem. Some of the 2 big pipes down there on the west end of that project down there, they've got probably 4 or 5 foot drop at the end of the pipes. Well, do with the amount of water and stuff like that. So it's a pretty simple fix. You just drop the whole end of the culverts or what structure, whatever it is, and put it down lower. And like I said, to help with the environmental stuff like that, it's a win-win situation. So, but like I said, if you want to have any comments or you want to go with it, I mean, like I said, I don't really know what hurts the county to do that, because we get reimbursed for stuff. It's just a matter of doing it, and then but it's, from what he told me, it would probably be at least a year, if not 2, before they got all this paperwork done. We're just in basically the review planning stage, so plenty of time to work. He just needs to hear from us.
This says it's Dole Creek watershed. How can they do something where
Well, that's another watershed up there. This is just, most of the stuff is through the Doyle over there.
Yeah,
So-
but they're becoming a bank or something.
Yes.
That's how they can do that?
Yes, and like I said, but it's a, prevent everything that we do downstream, to new culverts, control erosion, stuff like that, that gives them the credits.
Okay, but I have to be the taxpayer in that.
Okay,
And that's why I'm concerned about it, is that, whether they're, whose money we're spending weighed up here,
yeah,
when I'm paying tax down here, people pay for this.
yeah. Well,
That's my
and
concern.
I think, did I keep, yeah. Yeah, cause he said he's on the Doyle Creek.
Yeah.
This Lewis on.
Yeah, I know Louis very well.
But anyway,
Very
that's,
good person.
I actually dealt with this Brian Lang, it's a consultant
Okay.
they use. And like I said, I don't remember, why the two were different, but obviously that's not Doyle Creek up there, but the
Another
issue.
watershed, probably.
Yeah, another watershed district. But, he's, consulting with, basically with the Corps of Engineers and all those people for these. Now, the 80th, if we did go through and reconstruct that would pretty much be all at the county's expense. But with the amount of flooding and stuff like that, it definitely needs a lot of work. It's not a real high traveled road, but a lot of those over there do need some help. So, and we've talked about it several times to do it. So, I mean, we get the benefit of that too. And I could probably come back and say that a lot of it was flood, FEMA stuff too, just to show them what's got, because the pipe's bad. And of course, it's tremendous tree problem and debris problem and everything, so.
Well, our creek banks are leaving us quicker than we can, they're just leaving.
Yep.
And so, that's, erosion is something terrible.
I think some of that was probably deposited around your house in Peabody at one time.
Oh, I'm quite sure. But maybe I need to visit with Louis and just see exactly what's going on, and having come to some of the places that's really looking ugly, get closer to our roads around in our district, in our district down there, and see what maybe they've got some plans to help us out a little bit.
Well, I think they're all for that. It just all comes down to the money, and obviously they only get so much money, and when you deal with the federal government, Corps of Engineers, water resources, whatever it is, you have to jump through their hoops, and that's just a matter of formality of going back that. But I just went to the commission. If you guys want to go look at the projects, you want to bring him in, we can bring in Brian Lang, whatever you want to do. So
I think maybe the best thing to do would direct you to draft a letter of support for that. And as we get closer to it, then maybe we can bring them in.
okay.
Because like you said, the timeline may be way out there yet. Don't know.
Well, like I said, this is just a matter of formality so they can start the process to go through the permits, and because that's where the big thing is getting the permits and everything else to the Corps and the water resources stuff. So.
Good deal.
So anyway, like I said, I think it's tough to say that we wouldn't want to do that.
Is the
So
commission in agreement to do that?
okay. Did some investigating in Nighthawk. Talked about doing some of that stuff. I did look we had actually some quotes from contractors to do some of that work on Nighthawk. Based on what I did call and verify, we could probably get those pipes installed for less than $50,000. So it brings up the issue of, if you want to proceed with Nighthawk, then we can at least do the pipes, but I don't know if we obviously talked about this last week, depending on the funding, still kind of putting that out there. Again, I don't need an answer right away, but the sooner the better, so I can get things turned around. And I don't know, if you want to wait, even if we waited till the first of the year to find out where we end up, budget-wise and stuff like that too. I'm gonna just leave it in your hands. It's just a matter of the culverts won't be as big an issue, trying to go back and make up all the proposals and everything else for work on Nighthawk.
But that would be the first step anyway, wouldn't it?
Yes. But what we talked about before, I'd rather get those done sooner than later, because you get them in, you get them settled, you get them, and then when we go back and if we do the full depth reclamation, then they go right across it. Obviously, there's probably no settlement over the top of them. So.
These are in dire need of repair, these culverts
Yeah.
that's on this list.
And I said, now's the time to do it if we're gonna do it, because once you do the new road, then you tear up the new road and fix them, so. I was approached by a different contractor to put a different kind of sealing material on there, put another, half again as much than what we could do with conventional seal, so I said that's kind of tough to do. So, but anyway, like I said, that's just what they said, 50,000 would surely cover it, and that was just one contractor, so I'm sure if we put out several contractors, and this one had to be out of Wichita, we'll propose it to locals also.
And you said we had the culverts
Yes,
installed.
culverts are purchased, and they're sitting out the shop, so.
What's Mission's wishes?
That 50,000 would include the blade patching, everything to go back on to keep it for now.
Yeah, what we would do is, I can't remember what they quoted, but I said, we'd obviously take the pipes out there, deliver them, so it's just a matter of taking the old one out and putting a new one in. And I said we'd probably backfill with soil, and put like 2 inches of either cold mix or some sort of patching material on top of it, so it'd be all weather, and then do that. So yeah, and we could supply all that, that wouldn't be a problem. So, I can specify whatever we want to do, but I mean, I think that would work. But I think that obviously a contractor that does this for a business can do it so much faster than what we could. I mean, they're talking about they could probably do, some places they could do 3 or 4 pipes a day. So within a week or two, traffic control really wouldn't be much of an issue, just close each mile they work on, so.
So if you use a independent contractor to put those in, we need a bid?
Well, yeah, I would go out to bid. Like I said, we could go to locals. Like I said, this is just the one that happened to quote from when they had the estimate done in 18 for whatever reason. I don't know why, if they were planning on doing that. But yeah, I'd go out to bids because I know some local people that might want to do it too. So.
Well, personally, I'd be in favor of moving forward. Mission?
All right, so just get the bid, see where we're at.
Jonah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's consensus from everyone, is that right?
It is.
Consensus for everyone, Dave?
Yes, that's it.
Alrighty. All kinds of paper today. Next we have area fuel bids, and co-op got all the areas this time, so should be a copy for each one of you, one for Tina, and then for the newspapers as well. Pretty close on most of them.
Hey, we did get 3 bids this time.
We're still getting nothing out of Agri Trails. They responded back, they may or may not bid, so. But last time we only had, I think it was what, transfer, we only had 1 bid, so.
Make a motion to go with cooperative grain for all 3 areas.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the cooperative grain on the area fuel bid. All those in favor? Aye.
All right, transfer fuel bids, EPS was low, so I'll give us one copy for everybody. Sorry, Brad, I didn't make one for you in case you were wanting one.
Oh, that's fine, thanks.
We have the signed one from the contractor, can we just have it sign, that's the retained.
Okay, transport fuel bid. 2 bids, low bid, EPS, amount of $19,007.25. I'll make a motion to approve that. Moved and seconded by Dave. Any other discussion? Not all those in favor? Aye. 5-0.
Alrighty, one more. We had to put in quite a few culverts this year, so we had to go back and get some culverts for the end of the year.
You could have divided, Jen, could divide this?
Not the transport, you could
Transport,
have divided
no.
the area, the first
Yeah.
one.
Area.
Okay.
Transport's
Oh, that's
all
right, you
done.
can gas, yes.
Yep.
I was on the wrong one first.
We went out to Wellborn Industries as well as J&J, low bid come back with Wellborn, so.
same, every spec's the same,
Yeah.
everything? So, we've got
There's two from J&J. Was it two from J&J or
two
two?
from Will.
Okay. They quoted a little bit different stuff, the other one, but we're okay with the first one that we did.
So a little bit is the first sheet,
Yes.
doesn't include the second.
Yes.
Any discussion on those?
Anything from you?
No, we're okay with either one of them, so, but.
I'll make a motion to go with Wellborn.
Second. Moved by Jonah, accept Wellborn sales on the culvert purchase in the amount of $14,947.20. Seconded by Randy. Any other discussion? Not all in favor? Aye.
Bringing it up to the commission, we've had a couple calls on, obviously. It's gonna be Mr. Crowfoot's in your area. South of Florence, as you go south of there, whether you call it Main Street or whether you call it 105th or whether you call it Ranch Road. We don't know for sure what the road is called south of there. But the Mills property, or it's actually under Doyle Creek Ranch, I believe, it's been annexed since 1970 into the city, but nobody knows for sure whose responsibility is for the roadway.
Randy and Judy's house?
Yes, on the west side there. I have contacted, Cherry's looking at stuff, I've talked to the Register of Deeds, I've actually talked to the city of Florence, and everybody's like, I don't know. So anyway, contacted the city of Florence last week, and they're gonna look, they think that it's going to be city responsibility. But we're still trying to find out for sure what it is, and obviously, that road's been underwater maybe twice this year, so it does need some work, and it's just a matter of formality. If it's gonna be county's responsibility, we'll go in and fix it up, and if it's the city's responsibility, then that's what we're kinda at. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that's what we're working on.
Doesn't annexation supersede what was prior?
Well, I don't know. Again, if you look at all the property descriptions, it talks about going to the center of Main Street for that property. Now, how, if you would say it's the center of Main Street, you would assume that Main Street is the city street that goes down to there. I mean, I guess I would assume that it's called Main Street instead of X Ranch Road or 105th or whatever else it is.
Down part of Main Street goes south.
That's the whole point, is the property calls for their description, but it goes out to the center of Main Street, which typically that's how property is either to the center of the street or the center of the section or whatever else.
Somebody owns on the other side of the street.
Well, that's the question. Well, is it fair to say that the city owns the west half of the street, we own the east half of the street, then, so anyway, we're trying to figure it out so that we get some continuity and at least everybody knows, because I guess it's been back and forth several times as to who's responsible for what. So anyway.
It also becomes a problem for a grader operator to where to stop at.
Well,
That
and
seems to
that's-
be the problem, what's going on right now.
Yes.
Well, I'm not going there because that's that, and then we got some pretty grass in the ditch. And
There's-
so,
Makes one pass, huh?
and so, well, it seems like that. And I really think, if nothing else, the county would take it over to the bridge, if anything, at least
Well-
to the bridge, so that our grader operator could make a pass by their place,
Yeah.
take care of this, city to here, county here.
Yeah. Well, and the issue with that, I mean, the deal is there's a spot right in front of their place that's really, really bad. But then you get up to the bridge, isn't too bad. But then on the north side of the bridge,
North
in the
side of
town
the
is
bridge
even worse,
Yeah.
so.
Between the dike and the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, like I said, or I guess if that's the other thing, is if the commission wants me to go in and take care of it, we'll do it. I just,
For right now, it needs to be. So put a load of rock in it, grade it off, just get something done where they're not sitting there. Because the day I sat there with it and looked at it, and the tractor comes by and he was down to low gear and he just about bounced up and down. And
okay. Well, like I said, we can sure do that.
that's my
And-
opinion. If
I
the
mean,
council,
is it gonna slow down the area man down there if he just
I don't think
blades
so. I
out
think
that
it'd be
way?
easier to grade clear to the bridge if it was me.
Well, and like I said, the bridge is only just a little bit north of their place.
Yeah, it's only a another 150, 200 foot. I mean,
I would think you go clear to the dike.
well, and I'm not saying we
Have
can't.
the whole
I'm just-
road consistent.
Well, and again, if that's what you wanna do, that's what we can do. We've had this discussion, and I've talked to several supervisors, well, I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and so it's kind of that.
They have.
I think as taxpayers in the county, they need to, have a drivable.
Well, like I said, if they, and of course, talking to the city, they said, well, we don't really have a motor grader to go fix it. Well, I'd say that, well, yeah, I mean, I'd say it's not our problem, but it's just the idea that if they're supposed to be taking care of that portion, but, I mean, we can drop rock on it if that's what you do until, and I don't know how long it's gonna take to try to find something. We may never find anything on it. But like I said, it's kind of strange where they talk about going to the center of Main Street. Well, you would consider that Main Street, but anyway, so there, as far as we found out so far, there's no legal documentation.
The flood area down there, probably between the bridge and the dike.
Oh, yeah.
down there, I don't know, that goes down there, goes across that quite often,
Yeah.
so you're looking at not just a normal country road maintenance, you're looking at a little extra maintenance. down
Well,
there.
in all honesty, that's kind of what I'm getting at, because we can drop rock on there to make it passable, but it really needs to be raised up a good foot or two. Put a good crown on it, because right now the water sits on the road, and that's what's happened at Mills Place too, is
Yeah.
water's just sit there and it's made a good level. So, like I said, we're trying to find information, but we'll go down and do some work on it. So, 'cause like I said, honestly, if we go in and fix that, it's what, a good quarter and half mile into town, I mean, if we do that the way it's supposed to be, we'll spend several days down there. Trees need to be trimmed back and new ditches and stuff like that, so. So anyway, we can do that,
Is
and
commission okay with that?
So you're gonna go ahead and just fix the road, the bad spot and stuff right now?
we'll
right?
fix the bad spots, and if you want, I can put the rock into town, make a, because I'm sure right now if it got wet, it would be pretty slick, but, like I said, based on that, we can do that pretty easy.
How far we go up to their driveway, to that area, a little
Basically,
past it or whatever?
from the south end of their driveway or thereabouts, give or take 100 feet into town, is probably, a half mile,
At
or
the
less
most,
than half
at the
mile.
most.
But like I said, it's up to you guys, if you want me to go in there and totally rebuild it. The other thing is, if we went in there and totally rebuild it, then it's okay. If it is, give it back to the city, we've left it in great condition. It's totally up to you. Which,
Well, and I don't think they're asking for a total rebuild. I think they're just asking to have it repaired, so
Well,
it's drivable.
but again, here's the issue, is
You do it
trying
right.
to. Yeah, that's what has got us in trouble in the past, is we've done so many temporary fixes, we just keep dropping our rock on it. Well, that's not solving our problem. But if
So are we gonna then assume it's our road then and take care of it from then on, or how are we gonna do that?
Mills is a big taxpayer in Marion County.
I understand that there's a lot of big taxpayers, I'm just, we don't play favoritism, okay?
Thank you.
Money can't buy it.
You
So,
just
But like
have to-
you're saying, that the trees are gonna have to be trimmed back anyway.
They should
must be hanging.
Yeah, well, and they're growing in the ditches, and like I said, the best thing to do, I mean, the right thing to do is go in there and get it fixed right. But like I said, it's gonna take us several days to do all
City of
that.
Florence also has property on the other side for their lagoons and things down there on the other side. I think if we do that, maybe work out agreement with shared cost. I don't know, the way Terry showed me the map, it looks like it goes down the center of the road that day. And so it'll be a half and half road, just like we do other towns half and half. So maybe, I'm not scared to spend the equipment in there and rebuild it, but maybe the rock we split half and half, if that's what best you can come up with.
I can go back and work with them, I mean, they weren't totally saying, no, it's not ours, I mean, they were like, we don't know either.
Right.
So.
Well, maybe that's the best way to address it then, is a half-half basis.
Okay.
I have no problem with that.
but I think we need to also find out for the future where we are.
Yeah,
Well, and like I said-
in the end, we're gonna have to have something.
Yeah, I don't know when the city of Florence meets, because like I said, I just talked to them last week, so.
Every other week, I think.
They what?
Every other week.
Every other week, okay. And but they're obviously gonna have to do the same thing. It's because you look at one of their maps from 1989 on the wall, actually shows a 60-foot right-of-way all the way down to the property and back up. Well, 60-foot right-of-way would pretty much save the entire roadway, but I don't know, and I don't know if anybody else knows either, so. Anyway, so I'll go back and proceed with them, and maybe I'll get on agenda to go talk to them
Yeah,
about.
that would be, we can do a cooperative effort on it.
Yeah, and like I said, whether it's, you know, because honestly, if they do have to go in and rework it, all they're gonna do is dump rock on it, and it's gonna solve the problem.
Just
But
be back where we're at.
yeah, well, like I said, that's what I like about it. If we're gonna do it, let's do it right, so that we don't have to spend, you know, every week going through there and touch that, because it's a fairly heavily traveled road and goes south, so. Okay. And the only thing I had was, Purple Wave. Purple Wave was planning on being here next week. You wanted to try to get rid of the Crown Vic, and we've got the other equipment lined up, so you come up with anything else in the meantime, just let us know, and we're gonna try to, just park everything up at the county shop, so if anybody has any questions, want to come see stuff or whatever else, it'll be out there. We'll still have eyes on it, so.
All right, thank you, Bruce.
Anything else?
I'm sure you've heard the Burdick Road. I've forgotten.
Yes, yes.
Plenty of calls.
Yeah, we've,
The one that goes to Burdick, we only have a mile of it.
east of 77, yeah. yeah.
We saved a lot of money on that. We're going to have to buy the mile, why not?
Yeah, we're still out there patching stuff. We're still talking about, what we have to do on 330th, you know, whether we patch it or we've actually talked about just maybe even taking our bow mag out there and putting some rock down the road, bow mag it in, because there's just nothing out there base-wise. We're also gonna put up signs that says, we've got some new signs and we're just gonna put up temporarily, just something else to.
Burdick Road east of 77.
It's a mile.
Or for signs, or for signs.
Well-
Travel at your own risk, what?
No, it was like, I wanna say it was.
Travel at your own risk.
No, Brad would love that sign. No, that is not a good sign to put up. I think they were pavement break up ahead or something to that effect, you know, because like I said, we're out there weekly trying to patch these stuff and so like, it's just one more sign we'd put up if they don't look at the other signs or whatever else, but, you know, the majority of the people driving out there, they already are familiar with it, so. But, so anyway, nothing else then? Okay.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yep.
Okay, commission restricted burning discussion. There's been several over the last week, fire chiefs and Randy Frank even brought it up to me, whether we would discuss that. Now, I do realize that we had kind of a general half-inch of moisture around the county anyway. And we have more moisture in the forecast, but it's still extremely dry. What's your thoughts?
Put restricted burning on for 30 days, see what it's like. Maybe get some rain here.
Well, we could put it on for less time than that too.
Does anybody hear about the burn ban input?
I haven't seen any fire chief or anything. You got something, Randy?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends upon if you're gonna call it restrictive burning or a ban. Yeah, you just wanna be awful careful about putting a ban on. Sometime you might have to, like, probably at some point, if I see that there's gonna be a problem in the future, I'll probably burn the ditches away from my property, so we don't have a fire. I think, looks like the next few days, you know.
Yeah, there's moisture in the forecast.
Well,
We'll see.
you don't have to have all you need is a little bit of damp weather, and, you know, you're not gonna have a problem. Is it something you need to keep an eye on? Yeah. I've kind of said all along, you don't even need to wait for weather like this. You know, it's probably all right to put some restrictions on, just not an out and out ban.
What would those restrictions include?
Well,
That's the hard part.
they are included in this there's certain things that are they're
Well,
prohibited, but
it allows a fireplace and, you know, those kind of things.
Well, maybe not burning big hedge piles. Once again, everybody's on their own best behavior. It's kind of tough.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to, if you put something out there like that, then how do you enforce it?
That's why I say you want to be kind of careful about doing that.
Yeah, I think we either do a burn ban or we don't do a burn ban. That's up to,
Well, I mean, I'm gonna go with recommendation of people. I just don't know for how long. I mean, if our fire departments are telling us we need this.
I mean, to implement the burn ban proclamation.
You don't want to do that.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know. What, is this just a temporary endeavor, or is it?
It can be whatever we want it to be.
You can stay on till you take it off.
Yeah, it has, it's up to us, whatever. A week, 2 weeks, 5 days, whatever you want to do.
If anything, just put some restrictions on it. You don't want an out and out burn. That causes problems.
I don't know where you would go, Brad, with it. You'd have to come up with a whole list of things that would be restricted and things that wouldn't be restricted and.
I've been asked to do that before, and that was
Well,
difficult.
or, and I guess another way you could do it is say, okay, like if I say, I wanna burn the road ditches, so, you know, to make a fire break, you know, something like that would probably be acceptable. Now, would I go out and start a hedge pile fire now? You know, the only way I would is if I seen there was rain in the forecast, or at least high humidity for the next, week and a half. So no, that would probably be, no, you probably wouldn't want to do that. I suppose you could say, well, if you're doing it for a fire
Mitigation.
yeah, that's okay. Any other reason, like burning household trash, or even hedge piles, that would be out. That would be easy to enforce.
But if it's a burn for fire mitigation, it would have to be.
Right.
It would have to be approved by, if it's ditches, it'd have to be approved by Road and Bridge or something.
Not necessarily.
They could put an exception in there for fire.
Well, no, I'm not saying that, but somebody would, I mean, you're gonna call it, you call in for a burn, you're gonna call in for a controlled burn.
Right.
You're not calling in and say, I'm gonna burn the right of ways.
But they always ask what you're burning.
Yeah, grass or brush.
Yeah, they wanna know how many acres, they wanna know how many
Well, yeah.
acres. They wanna know kind of what
But
you're
they never
doing.
have asked me if
the
they'll
right
burn
person-
a ditch or
right-
not.
Right. Yeah.
I think a simple solution would be looking at item number 3 and allowing an exception for fire mitigation to this.
Yeah, but what is fire mitigation? That's gotta be. I'm out.
Okay, I better put mine on. I'll be right
Sounds like Brad, that's right, like Brad said, that's kind of a can of worms.
Well, right here on prohibited from burning of all fence rows, fields, pastures, grasslands, ravines, trash and debris. Except that trash and debris may be burned in permanent stoves or permanent enclosures. So we just can't say number 3 because that opens it, I mean, it
Well,
just
that's
don't
pretty-
stop.
that's pretty much all
I wasn't
burning
trying to
activity.
exclude
Well-
number 3. I was trying to put a provision.
No.
What you could do is just have your 911 operators, you know, if there's anything more than about let's say between 8 or 12 mile an hour wind, hey, just don't let you burn. That would be another real easy way.
What is it now, 15?
They don't actually have one, it's on a fire weather index, a scale, which doesn't really take,
Yeah, but I know in the past when I've called in, they'll say, oh, it's 16 mile an hour. So
well,
it's-
that wasn't last year, that was probably the year before.
Probably, it could have been.
Yeah, see, they kind of should change that.
But Randy, don't you agree that maybe if we put it on and just review it each week? Because if
No,
we get rain, then it
because-
can come off, because I understand what you're saying, you're wise, you're smart, but you know how many people are not?
I'm
And that's where
trying,
we get into trouble.
I'm trying to help that. I'm trying to get on the phone every day with all these people. I'm, hopefully by, no. If you look at the weather forecast right now, that after tomorrow, we've got like 5 days of either rain or some kind of sprinkles. You don't need it. In other words, if you wait 1 week to meet, you know, you may have had 6 days good to burn, and the one day that you meet, take the burn ban off, that's a bad day. In other words, it doesn't really help.
So I do see that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, there is a chance of some, that's it, but not the next 2 or 3 days.
Actually, it's actually Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's the weather forecast I got, it's really accurate.
The policy we have is we go by this burn ban flag and stuff, and I mean, that's what it was put in for.
Well, that's why I say, I think we either
Put it on,
either
go.
do it, or
Yeah.
we say we'll come back next Monday and.
That's what you
revisit
ought to
it.
do, just come back next Monday.
But I mean, once we put it on, we can review it every week. It doesn't have to be on for 30 days.
You almost need to do it on a daily basis.
Well,
I mean, I don't know, you don't have to all meet, but surely you could do it on the phone.
the only thing is that for reporting in the paper, you know, if we had a burn ban,
That's why
burn
people
ban that will be
call
reported, it'd be
911 before they
reviewed
burn.
weekly, people would know. And like you said, there's moisture in the forecast, but there's no guarantee of it. You know, when we saw what happened over at Hutchison the week before last, and I mean, it got right up to the doors. That could have been a major disaster again.
Last year was a catastrophe.
Yep.
Last year was cattle dying everywhere.
Yeah. And you know,
That's
we
the
have
reason why we
awful lot
may
of,
need to do some
we have an awful
controlled
lot of dry
burns.
vegetation right now. I mean, it's been a dry fall.
We had 2 fire crews that spent all night out at just southwest of
I was one.
70th and 80th, between just west of the county of Night Harbor, or Indigo, west. of
Well, yeah,
they
like
spent
right
2
on
nights
the
out doing it.
Marion Harvey County.
Yeah, right in there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you sure did.
Randy, I'm sorry, but I agree, there are some very smart farmers. I just had one tell me that they think it's too windy today to burn.
I'd go along with that.
But I'm personally in favor of the burn ban, because I tell you what, there's a lot of people out there that are not as conscious as you are, and it only takes one bad apple to ruin it for everybody. And so, that's just, I'm gonna have to disagree with you today.
Well, we could do a
Sorry.
30-day burn ban reviewed weekly.
Yes, yeah.
And we can review it weekly and take it off.
See what
If
happens.
all of a sudden next Monday, oh, it's muddy out now.
And I think that your proclamation says it's in effect until it's taken off.
Terminated.
So,
So
There,
we don't really need to put in a 30-day.
would you at least be able to have something in there that says that if the fire chief, as it's all right, you know, so we don't have a problem, later on that the fire chief, is still able to, in case, something for like stuff I was talking about. I mean, I'm just saying it could save a lot of problems down the road.
Yeah, but when we're talking about a weekly review,
Yeah, but see, I still haven't done it, I haven't done any burning yet, and I think I'm probably going to have to. And I'd probably still be in favor of it as long as let's say I felt I absolutely had to, as long as the only ramifications of doing it is if it got out of control, that I was responsible for it. If you have something like that, I would say, sure, always have a burn ban.
Or can you do
the
something?
trouble is, if you're responsible and it gets away, it's gonna be big.
Well, but I could be
Yeah, but
responsible for
that'd
a
be on
pretty
the
big deal
person.
too.
That could be on the landowner to then pay
Right.
that fee.
It's up to the commission. All I know is I've heard from some of the fire chiefs and from our
I
risk
got-
management director.
I got a text
so
here from a week and a half ago, from a guy wanting to
I
bond.
know I have to rely on what they're saying.
Are there not like perpetual people that are the ones that are the problems that like you guys could do? Like, obviously people would still call in because, you know, that's how we control pastures and things like that. So then they would call in and they'd say, okay, well, you're not on the naughty list, so you haven't had it out of control. You know what I mean?
That
I
is a
don't know.
possibility.
But then that way, because if you just say put it to stop to everybody, then that's kind of bad. I don't know.
I think if we do that, then the neighbor down the road say, hey, it's okay.
I'm in favor of just putting the burn ban on and checking on it every week.
Set your motion.
Not often enough,
It can be, yes,
not often enough.
I would second your motion.
So is that a motion?
yes, and he
I
seconded
second.
it.
Okay, we've got a motion to put the burn ban in place to be reviewed weekly.
Or at least every time we meet.
Yeah, would be at the normal commission.
It'll be a Wednesday this week too.
Yeah, you can take it off anytime, don't have to be asked 7 days.
I mean, we
take it
could
off.
come in on Wednesday and it's raining and we could say take it
Sure.
off. And you're seconding
Come in
that?
then okay, let's go.
Okay, then it's been moved and seconded to go ahead and put in a burn ban proclamation countywide. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Okay. Okay, we have a signature here. Is Janine available? Oh, Janine's here.
She's been waiting patiently for a while.
Been cutting down what I'm gonna say. To shorten it.
Short and sweet.
Yeah. Okay, the treasurer's office is one of those offices that we wear many hats. There's several of them in the courthouse. But I thought I wrote down just a few of the things we do. And there's acronyms for each system that we use. So for the motor vehicles, that's the Boover system. For the commercial vehicles, that's the K-cover system. And the driver's license has several anachronisms. We, of course, everybody's gotten greetings, so you know that we collect taxes, we collect and distribute. I think Rebecca said that they were the start of the chain, well, we're the end of the chain, so we collect the funds and we distribute them out. Most all the departments in the county collect funds, they bring them in to us, we get them banked and into their accounting package, so that's just a little bit overall that we do. And, okay, October is always when the county is the lowest on funds, because all of the funds have been paid out. But there's a good side to that. November 12th, we mailed out the tax statements. By the 20th, we'd already collected over $600,000. So things change rapidly for the county. And I thought I would just share. Here's the reconciliation of the last year's tax roll. We'll see where we were within 5 cents for accounting for every penny. I'd like to find those 5 cents, but I know that the tax system runs lots of funds by district, but when you get down to my property, it changes a little bit, so 5 cents is in rounding. Overall, that made for a delinquency factor of 4%. I think last year was 3%. We had some big taxpayers didn't get their taxes paid on time.
Did they pay them now?
Not yet. They hadn't as of Thursday, I haven't checked today. More of them are coming in in May. So we've started over again. Tina has given me the tax roll that's gonna be for the 2019 taxes, and it's 23 million, so we're starting over. Okay, has any of this made any sense to you?
Any questions for the commission?
I love facts, figures, and numbers, but most people do not, so.
And the numbers get pretty large, don't they?
And they do. But they still need to balance no matter how large or how small.
Just a big understanding is this is not all county money.
No.
It's schools, it's
Yes.
districts, fire districts, it's everything.
Yeah, if you look at the levy sheet, in cities, it's probably a third. Out in the county, I mean, the non-city properties, it's probably a half that the county gets, so. You look at the levy sheet or look at your tax statement, it will show you how much the county gets of your tax dollars. And it'll show you how much it's changed from last year, whether your property went up or down, or the levy went up or down. And should the school have gone up, the county have gone up, the city have gone up or down, and we'll show you that. So there's lots of information on that tax notice.
Good. Anything else? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
And I say I condensed it, so catch you back up maybe.
Okay, actions related to the Expedition Wind project, Brett?
Okay, these are primarily, I would refer to them as housekeeping details, as you've already taken action on much of this previously. We have the transitional period now of 5 versus 3, and in order to account for that, so everyone recognizes that it was a 5-member board involved at the time that this was approved, I've had all of the various documents changed to now list all 5 of you, but the option exists for a yay, a nay, or an abstention. So that depending upon what you choose to do in these instances, we can mark that accurately, and everyone knows that 5 were participatory, but that for the 2 newest members of the board, you have every right to vote on everything going forward. But given that this is one of those awkward ones that we'll only have 1 or 2 of, where action was already taken to approve the agreement subject to staff review, the revisions that were noted, and get that ready. That's been done. In your packet, where the development agreement itself, I think was circulated with everything, at least from what I saw.
Did you say agreement?
Yeah.
Development agreement, yes.
Along with the operative resolutions. None of the language in the resolutions has changed, other than the one that is to approve the development agreement formally. Has now got an authorization in it that was in addition to the motion to have the chair sign that, since it's a contractual agreement, and we often do them that way rather than making all five of you go through that process, particularly if you're not comfortable signing it, if you were opposed to it, or didn't feel that you were privy to all the information or materially part of the process. So that's how I've accounted for all of that. So what we really have are three action items. One, on the CUP previously approved, that was subject to, and I had added the language that it was subject to the protest petition because the 14 days had not run. There was a protest petition. Mr. Avey came and reported on that the last time, that it was of insufficient magnitude in terms of total numbers to be valid for purposes of protest. But they would like us, even though that was all in essence accounted for, they still are requesting that we reaffirm that approval with a clean one, specifically saying now that there was no valid protest petition that was approved or presented to you. So that's one. Second one is the development plan approval resolution. And then third is the resolution for execution of the development agreement that has the changes that were made, and it's been reviewed by both myself, Patrick Hoffman, and then obviously Expedition Wind went through to make sure that they weren't objecting to anything. And that's what was given to you in your packet. That makes sense, or do we, as we go through each one of these, I'll say it again so we're clear, but what you were provided operatively hasn't changed at all. It's the signature page in each case that I have in front of me right here that now makes provision for us to take note of yeas, nays, and abstentions for all five of you. And the only change in any of these was to authorize in the resolution for the development agreement that the chair be allowed to sign that and bind the county on that basis based upon the approval of the commission. So tell me if any of that was just more confusing than it was helpful.
Okay, so the first item that we need to approve is the additional language in the development plan.
No, I would just go with, do these chronologically. You had previously approved the CUP, asked that that resolution approving the conditional use for the wind energy conversion system for certain lands located within the unincorporated area of Marion County, under the authority of the same heading as previously listed, but it now has all five on it, and it mentions that no protest petition was filed sufficient to trigger a 3/4 supermajority vote. Since the petition was filed, they want to make sure they follow that up with a second resolution now that indicates that that was not an issue.
Do you have that draft?
Yes. And if we want to have the exact document in front of you, I have no problem going and we can make copies of that. Again, it's just a fairly hefty stack, and those are the only changes to it. But I'm happy to do that if you want to do something
So
else.
you're saying that's the only changes to it, what you just mentioned. So then in essence, when we were here talking, some of those things that were supposedly be changes that I noticed were not changed. Some of the wording was a little bit.
If that's the
Okay,
case,
but-
that needs to be discussed as part of this motion, because to the best of my knowledge, in terms of the notations that I made, and that Patrick, I had him review it as well, had made, we didn't find that to be true, but if we missed something, now's the time to take care of it before we approve this, obviously.
Okay, well, I know, as you remember, there was one deal where it said that if there was a dispute between the engineer and the Expedition Wind, that would come before the commission as for review. And we had quite a little joke about it and so on, and I said, I wanted it for correction or for, to be able to resolve. Well, it still says for review. Now, they changed the words around, but the meaning is still the same.
Okay.
So it's not written exactly the way it was, but the change was not made the way I was under the impression it was gonna be made.
And that's fair enough. If we want to hold that one, and that's fine if you choose to say based upon that, we want to hold it, I will do that, go back to them with that again, and say that it isn't exactly what was agreed to, and then bring it back again next Monday. We'll do that till we get it right.
Well, and I'm gonna leave it up to the commission because on that same thing, and that's this one right here, the one that has, the road maintenance agreement on it. And so, and I understand where it's at, I already voted no on that and everything, and I don't stand by my position. I just wanna make sure that the commission fully understands. I read this thing again, late, because that's when I got it, late. And throughout this whole, road maintenance agreement, there are 75 times in there where it refers to the county engineer. 75 times. It has jobs, it has responsibilities, obligations, tasks, duties, etc. 75 times. And I know we discussed that and it was brought up, well, or designee.
Yes.
Well, between 10 to 12 times it says or designee. So that means there's about 60 times that it is the responsibility and a job and to be understood by the county commission that our engineer is gonna do all this work on taxpayer dime. And I just want the commission to understand what they're doing, because I just find that to be, and I just question why all the other surrounding counties hire third parties, because you don't usually use taxpayer engineering services to take care of private industry, and I'm totally opposed to that, but I just wanna make sure that they understand the way it's written, because that really stuck out like a sore thumb. So that's all I'm gonna say, is so they can't say, oh, I didn't know, because now I told them. So that's all I have to say on that.
Is there any items that stand out in your mind that or designee wouldn't work on those items that she's referring to?
No, I made the same general request that go ahead and replace it everywhere. What Trish did in going through the entire agreement, I don't disagree with that interpretation, is that the places where it says, you know, as and comprehensively in this agreement, the reference to engineer can be and or to designee, but it does not, it absolutely does not say it in each and every instance where a county attorney is mentioned.
Engineer.
Or, excuse me, an engineer is
Or
mentioned.
attorney.
So, or both.
Yeah, okay.
So what you're saying is each and every time that it brings up the county engineer, it also refers to designee.
It does not. It does it in a number of instances. For example, if you'll recall, when we discussed it that day, there's a beginning point in this whole process where it refers to the county engineer and how they're referred to throughout the document.
Right.
And they did go ahead and change it there and specify or designee. But is it everywhere that's ever mentioned? No, it is not.
And to be fair, you know, Brad, I know you know, if it's not in writing, it's not enforceable. So if it says it on page 1, but not on page 8, page 8 really, you have to go by what it says. And if it does not say the designee, then that means that that is the county attorney's job. I'm sorry, not attorney.
We're doing the same thing, aren't we?
Yeah,
Yeah,
engineer. And so I'm just saying, and as I looked at all the duties, and they're spelled out. They're spelled out in detail, what they expect our engineer to do. And I'm here to tell you, just based on experience up north, there's no way our engineer is gonna do all these tasks and be a good engineer to our county. There's just not enough hours in a day for him to do 2 full-time jobs like they expect him to do. But it's up to the commission. It's their.
Any other discussion?
The designee would be what you're asking to be added, Diane. Just to leave more flexibility. I believe.
Yeah, because I don't like the idea of my tax dollars being spent on private industry. And that's what we're doing. We're giving them a free ride on our dime. And most of your counties have third party, have Kirk and Michael. That's why Kirk and Michael works in all the different counties, which relieves the engineer of a lot of those, or I'm sorry, the county engineer of those responsibilities. But it's slipped right through here, so.
If we can add designee to everything, then that's what the first one said, right?
Well, that's what we discussed, is that we would add, I think that the clear intent, we're gonna need to keep a copy of that whole video for future reference, just so that we have all the discussion, by the way, as an editorial comment. But I don't think there was any dispute about our being allowed to use the designee, but I will candidly admit that this is a pretty lengthy document, and there are a number of places where it still just references the county engineer as synonymous for, at the beginning in those additional provisions, it talks about the county engineer or designee, but it does not do it everywhere.
And I will also add one final thing to that. When we did the one up north, that designee was already established before this contract was signed, because that designee is listed in the road maintenance agreement for up north. When we hired Kirk and Michael, all that was established beforehand. They knew what the cost was, we knew what we were gonna pay, and then it was included in the road maintenance agreement. And they had their jobs and responsibilities outlined as well. This one right here, well, in my opinion, is frightening for the county, but we have it.
John?
Don't know if this plays into first, second, or third piece of all this, but, do you have anything in here that relates to any liquidated damages at all to, because the one up north, the complaint department got real big when they didn't get done.
Yep.
And get out. So I wanted to see if there was any triggers in play to make sure that this is accomplished in a relative a reasonable time.
Penalty section, yes, I mean, you have an element of that, those provisions are in here. Liquidated damages are difficult for me to say yes to, because in many instances contractually in Kansas, you cannot do that. There's some prohibition on it, has to be approximate and consequentials. And we don't just get to say, okay, it's this much. Now you can, and it does contemplate in certain types of penalties for undue delay, that kind of thing. But then you get back to your issues of force majeure and that kind of stuff as well. But the short form answer is yes, some of what you're asking about is in there in certain types of performance clauses, but not in others, and on the others where it's not currently, we wouldn't be able to get them specified because we just don't know what they're going to be. We don't have any way to and I wouldn't necessarily want us to, similar to Diamond Vista, which I will expect we'll probably discuss next Monday. When you get them out of there, if you're saying, well, we'll accept cash in lieu, how much cash? What is the liquidated amount of damage is going to technically be? It's difficult to come up with in certain instances until you get there. With the daily penalties, that kind of thing, yeah, there's provisions for some of that in here.
Any more discussion? That was Brad said that we had previously approved the development plan.
Well, if we could, Mr. Chair, I would ask that we do it kind of in the same order that these things were approved originally. We kind of digressed just a bit, but do the CUP resolution first, then your development plan resolution, then we get to the point that's.
And this is the CUP resolution.
So everything we just talked about was about the third.
Yes,
Okay.
the agreement itself.
And do we have a number?
2019-20.
Okay, this is a resolution approving a conditional use permit for wind energy conversion system for certain lands located within the unincorporated area of Marion County, Kansas, and the authority granted by the Marion County zoning regulations, Article 12, 19, 24, and 27. I'll make a motion to approve that
Second.
resolution. You second it, Randy?
Yes.
And just by way of again, clarification, so we're really clear, this has already been previously approved, subject to, I made it subject to the protest petition element of things. They just want this as a, kind of a close the door element of it, saying, yes, you approve it now that there is no protest petition that requires a supermajority.
And it states in there, whereas no protest petition was filed sufficient to trigger a 3/4 supermajority vote required as necessitated by KSA 12-757/F/1.
And I will add one other element on these, because this is kind of the crossover, as I was saying earlier, as to the two new members. If you choose to abstain, that's not inappropriate in this instance. I'm normally not going to say that to you unless you've got a direct conflict, because this one was done while it was still a 3-member board, but I do want to at least register your participation in the fact that you were present as part of this overall lawfully convened with a quorum meeting today. So the provision is made on these documents, similar to what we'll use from now on, but it has the choice for abstention as well, if you choose to do that.
So an abstention would count as a what vote?
Basically, if we go back to where we were originally, just to make it easy for hypothetical purposes, and it were a 2-to-1, and that's the way it stands, with 2 abstentions, the abstentions basically by common law are counted with the majority. They don't really impact it because the vote is done on a 2-to-1 basis. if anyone technically wants to count that, they are treated as a vote with a majority prevailing vote.
So, Brad, I do have one question. What is the legal advantage of redoing this with that one phrase in there about stipulating that there was no protest petition filed with substantial? What is the legal, because there's gotta be an advantage for them to want that in there.
Just to make it very clear, I'm the one that took their document and added to it because I wasn't comfortable passing that unless we had something in for the benefit of the citizens that indicates 14 days hasn't run yet. And in fact, a petition was in fact filed. This one, and I said, the fact that it wasn't filed, basically that condition subsequent, if you will, didn't exist, so that resolution should be sufficient. They, for purposes of their records, want an absolutely clean version passed. For finance purposes, for going forward, should anyone ever ask, well, wait a minute, this one said, but if there was a protest petition, then they have to come back and check to make sure that the protest petition that was filed was insufficient and for purposes of, not on its face, but in terms of the supermajority requirement.
So kind of cover up the fact that we approved it first?
I don't know that I would say cover up,
Well,
but
okay, maybe that's a bad word, but I
to
mean,
address
you
it.
kind of gotta
Yeah,
hide that part.
yeah.
Okay.
We discussed this, and I was like, you don't need to do it. But I asked again last week, and they said they really would like to have that action taken.
Okay, I just want to get a clear understanding.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? We have a motion on the table and a seconded. Okay, all in favor of passing resolution number 2019-20? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. So it's,
Abstain.
3-1.
Fits in the.
So was that an abstention? Okay.
The second one I would suggest that we take up next, the development plan had been approved as to form and type, but the resolution itself has not been passed.
I believe we did pass a
Did we?
resolution.
That's what, I was
That's why
looking through it,
asking.
and they've got it included again.
Right, I'm pretty sure we've already done that.
Let me double check that before I make you go through that process.
That's why I was wondering why
For
we
no
would need
reason.
to do that again. That was 19-16, approving a comprehensive development plan for wind energy conversion systems and expedition. It was passed on November 15th.
But it was an actual resolution 19-16?
Yes.
Okay, then we're not gonna bother with that. Because it would, at the time, I thought it was just the actual plan itself, without a resolution in place, but that's fine. That then takes us to the last resolution, which is for the development agreement as previously approved, subject to, as I indicated, the staff review and other issues. This authorizes, the only change in it, besides just approving it, is authorizing the chair to sign. And this is where the discussion came in a little earlier in the meeting here as to whether you want the revision to include or designate at every point within the document itself or not.
Discussion on that?
if we hire an outside and it's for part of the road somewhere, Ring or something like that, that would be in, let's say, Kirkland Michaels. They would be the designee,
Mhm.
Right. Third party.
third party. So, I think, we don't know that we're not gonna hire somebody like that. So, just so that whoever it might be able to be on there, except for Bryce. I have no problem with that. Just wanted so that we could accept, accept either or, yes.
Designate would allow you to have either or.
He's a designee, could be a third party right now.
Or,
Mhm.
yeah, or you could deem it, well, I can take care of that piece.
Yeah, it could even include, if you so chose, we discussed that, the potential for an additional employee in-house. But again,
It won't pay for the employee.
well, in certain instances, we did change that throughout this thing.
I did see that you added, where he could hire. Up front it says you can, in the back it says you can.
Yeah. Now, if you want us to go back through that And as many times as I've gone through it, I won't have any problem going back through it again and just saying wherever that, it appears as county engineer, you want or designee in it, and that reiterated, happy to do that.
What's the commission's consensus?
I can just see where it could happen.
I see the benefit of having designee, but also in judgment where you would want the designee to take care of certain.
Yeah, I mean, it's your choice wherever we put it, because we'll put or designee, so that's available to you, and then I'll recheck I know I checked it off when I saw it on the employee, but if we need to go back and see that that's located several additional places.
So how would we do that now, since we're at this point and we don't already have, you know, to put out bids and all that other stuff right now? Didn't we already put the cart before the horse here, based on how we done it up north? Because they
It's
would have
different
to-
than what you did there, yes.
Yeah, because they would have to approve the amount and all that other type of stuff, and that's all part of the contract up there. See, so I think we've already kind of shot ourselves in the foot on that.
Well, it's
If we
contemplated.
approve
I mean, you
this-
still have the ability to do it if you want to. If you want to go ahead and get that type of a bid before doing anything to know what the contemplated amount is, we still have that ability.
But in this agreement, they haven't, they just set a straight
limit.
limit.
Set amount.
So it doesn't matter who you use,
Yeah.
or whether you use an employee
I
or
don't
whoever.
think that affects this resolution.
No, the only thing so far that affects the resolution is if you're approving this agreement. If you want that added language or designee everywhere that the county engineer appears, then you would probably hold on this till Monday.
And I would also have to ask the question to you, Brad. What really, and I read that where it says that the engineer cannot let the designee do these certain things, and there was a list of, I don't know, 6 or 8 things, which to me, based on the fact that you hired an actual engineering firm, let's just use Kirk and Michael as an example, you hired Kirk and Michael, okay? Why would you restrict Kirk and Michael from suggesting road repairs or doing road fixings or saying that it needs to be fixed this way? Why would you even want to restrict them? That's rather insulting to their expertise to say you can't be the one to tell us that this road needs to be fixed. I don't think that's an appropriate thing to exclude them from,
It's, how do I just explain this?
because it covers a lot.
It does. On the other hand, the way it's done, they're saying there are certain things that we expect the final answer, just like certain things come directly from this board, come from the county engineer. County engineer can say, let's see, you say it was Kirk and Michael. I'm gonna take your opinion. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna put a NAR contract between the county and this designee, that I'm gonna take your recommendation as gospel. You follow me? So, and then he's just rubber stamping. I don't mean that in a bad sense, like he didn't look at it. His ability, he's just the one that sits there, and he is the one it goes to in terms of the final approval.
The engineer, county engineer. I don't see a problem with that. If you have an engineering firm that is hired by the county, because that's usually where their dedication is. I know that was true with Kirk and Michael. They were 2,000% dedicated to the county.
And that's the way this, at least is the one I'm thinking that you're thinking of, is supposed to, is intended to be. That we hire who we want up to that limit, okay, in terms of those dollars
Yeah,
that they're willing to spend. Then how we deal with what they tell us is our business. But what they did put in there was that, you know, it's the engineer is kind of still that liaison point between the county commission and them. The engineer can say, I'm going to take exactly what these people we've hired. He'd be silly not to, and say that's the requirement. He's just in the loop on those things mandatorily.
Well, and some of it might be because of budget too,
Yeah.
because the outside firm doesn't have the authority to spend the county's funds.
And conceivably, if we'd have had a county engineer when the first project started, it would be the same way.
Probably. I mean, it's not an unusual kind of language to use.
We ready to go ahead with the resolution? You have it there, Brad?
Yeah.
So this one was already done, but it was only done by 3. It wasn't done by 5.
But it would, at the time, it was legitimately
Yes.
adopted, so.
Yes, 2019-21.
Okay, a resolution approving a comprehensive development agreement for wind energy conversion system for certain lands located within an unincorporated area of Marion County, Kansas, under the authority granted by the Marion County zoning regulations on Article 24 and 27.
And it does specifically authorize the chair to sign the actual agreement itself.
Okay. Is there any other discussion of that, or do you want me to read the whole thing? Up to commission.
It's operatively the same as the one you previously received.
Right.
Except for that language about the chair. I asked them to specifically add that just for expediency in this whole thing. Make it easier for them, because I knew that some might not wish to sign, whether it was for abstaining on this or opposition, so.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve resolution number 2019-21, approving a comprehensive development agreement for wind energy conversion system for certain lands located within an unincorporated area of Marion County, Kansas, under the authority granted by the Marion County zoning regulations, Article 24 and 27.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
For those
Aye.
reasons I expressed, I'm gonna say aye, not opposed.
I'm gonna have to oppose to part of the negotiations.
3-2.
Wanting to get more.
That's everything that I have.
And so we don't need, we need to have the other signatures?
Yes, on that, and then you'll sign the agreement itself.
Yeah, the other will just be your signature.
Everyone signs the
This follows,
resolution.
marks their appropriate action taken.
And then do you have the signature for the agreement?
This, he was supposed to put it on this. Yes.
And then I printed 2 of those so that we could have 2 originals, one for.
Those are the 2 originals and the signature line. The chair is about page 16, I think.
16?
Somewhere right around there.
I guess.
Not 16.
That one was about the contrast.
I didn't go past it, did I?
Next page. That was signed, and you go to the next page. There's your signature.
11:25.
Don't think it counts anymore.
There's a second one there for you to sign too.
Oh, here.
Okay. Okay, the only other item I have is not specifically listed there, but this is just informational. I would suggest we at least contemplate having the Diamond Vista issue in terms of the road maintenance agreement on next Monday's meeting. Yeah, next Monday's meeting. I don't know when we'll hear from Kirk and Michael. They had talked about having till the end of the month, which falls after the holiday and over the weekend, but just to keep it on in front of us if we can, and always take it back off again. But if they do get it to us, it would be good they can start to have that discussion again to get it moving.
Okay.
And so may I ask Brad a question, since that's the last thing you have on the wind turbines? May I ask him a question? So I have a question, Brad, on something else that's happened this past week that really concerns me, and I want your legal advice here at the moment, although I've talked to others. But there was a letter that went around from Expedition Wind to a variety of people I guess, people who were in favor, people who were not part of the project, and so on. And that's their business, that's fine with me. But what stands out to me and what really concerns me is the fact that Expedition Wind is implicating the commission and the commissioners in their attempt to buy out people's properties and things like that. Now, I don't remember ever giving them the authority to represent me as a commission or to implement me in any of their letters that go out, whether it be to the property owners or whether it go to participating people, non-participating people. And I think there's, as I read this, I'm really, really concerned with actually the way it's written, okay? Because I want to know the legal implication here. They're offering up to $2 million for various payouts for people for various reasons. What would they expect from the county commission in exchange for that? They're just going to put $2 million out, pay these people off, or if they all sign it, if they all agree to the terms, and it's very clear in here that it's contingent upon terms. I think that's called quid pro quo. I watch a lot of TV. But then the second thing is, as you read on to it even all the further, it's concerning to me because of, I consider all these people my constituents and so on and so forth, and this letter that they're sending out goes into extensive detail to where the bottom line, everybody with a reasonable mind would have to come to the conclusion that they're literally silencing the people. Because they're restricting them to ever come before planning and zoning, the county, or anything at all to do with this, them, their heirs, their dog, their cat, everything. I mean, I don't wanna have any part of this. And I don't know if the other commissioners are happy or okay with this, but I find this to be totally out of line.
I haven't seen it.
And I have all kinds of issues with it, and I wanna know how, as a commission, because they're just interveners. They're not even defendants. So I think they overstepped their bounds in this, so I wanna know what your take is on it.
The language that particularly disturbs you, read that to me, please. In terms of where it connects to the county.
Okay, so right here it says there's a waiver and release. It's under a subtitle, waiver and release. Except as provided herein, the plaintiff accepts and agrees to the settlement offer to settle any and all claims plaintiffs may now have or in the future relating to the project, including, without limitation, the lawsuits and any claims relating to past, current, future actions of Expedition Wind, the Marion County, Kansas Board of County Commissioners, the governing body, and the Marion County Planning Commission, the Planning Commission Zoning Board, related to this project, and any zoning, construction, operation, maintenance of, or aspects thereof. Plaintiffs agree to fully release, forever discharge, waive, and not assert any and all claims, cause of actions, lawsuits, demands against Expedition, the governing body, again us, the Planning Commission, and or, I mean, it just goes on and on, anyway, or affiliated member of the officer, director, agent, commissioner, now that's commissioner, or representative of Expedition, the governing body, or the Planning Commission. Plaintiffs will take no action or cause any other person, trust, or entity to challenge or contest in any way any action taken by Expedition, the governing body, or the Planning Commission, now or in the future, relating to the project. And then on the last page, this is where it goes on to say, I think that one right there pretty much covers it. Oh, it also goes on here, this is what I wanted to point out too, I'm sorry. But it also says all the lawsuits plaintiffs, which will be binding upon the plaintiff, its heirs, successors, and assigned, including any entity or trust for which the plaintiffs either control, own, or have any interest in. I mean, seriously, I don't wanna have any part of that.
And that's also giving you one rights.
Yeah,
It's nothing but bribery,
Well,
and
I'm
Mr.
just-
Jance has got a copy of what was sent to me, because I emailed it to him, and also to the county attorney.
Okay, well,
And
I'm just
also the
saying,
attorney general.
what can we do? I mean, this is certainly overstepping, would you not agree?
To the I'm not particularly crazy about some elements of their language, but is it illegal on its face per se? No, because what they're doing,
I'm sorry.
they're not asking the county, the commission, to sign off on this. They're acting directly in a contractual format between themselves and these other entities, these other parties, I'll just refer to them as parties, it's mostly individuals, attempting to resolve any objection that those outside the footprint and within a certain distance have with the project. they include us several times in ways that are perhaps a little unfortunate, because it makes it look as though we're complicit in this and had no knowledge that it was going out. So that's what I mean by some elements of it are unfortunate. Is it illegal for them to do that? Did they make any representation throughout indicating that the county commission is also asking, which we couldn't, by the way, for that type of indemnification? No, it doesn't. But I understand what your concern is, and I'll give you the straight up legal answer so it isn't just this gray area. No, it isn't anything they can't do. But am I troubled at a number of instances where if you don't read this every day and you read it and say that you're also doing this to the county commission? Yeah, a little bit, but not, again, more as a pragmatic issue. Because it does, if someone reads through that, they okay, well, the county is joining in this request, and we had nothing to do with it and had no knowledge that it was going out. Now, I did know, and I will say that for the record, I don't want anybody to feel like I'm misstating anything, that they were discussing, approaching, and were having conversations with all of the property owners who were stakeholders, but not within the legal parameters of the footprint, about trying to resolve all this in a way that was amicable for all concerned. I knew that. And this is apparently their solution to it and what they're proposing to all of those property owners.
And I'm okay with that. Just leave me out of it.
And we
I don't want to
can,
be a part of that. I mean,
the county can say, we had no knowledge of or any participation in sending this out and send it to the exact same group.
I think we should.
And that's, you
At
can
a
do that
minimum.
by instruction.
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
go,
there's
it's up to $2 million. I mean, so I just find it hard, even though they're not asking us at this point in time. I mean, it would lead, it gives you the definite appearance of inappropriate, because who's to say they're not gonna want us to approve everything they come before us in the future? I mean, the sky's the limit. We're leaving ourselves open by accepting that.
Well, the
or
point
by-
is, we're not accepting it.
Well, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. By even allowing it to pass, that we, even if we're silent on it, like you said many times, if things are silent, that's almost, you're just going along with it.
The appearance of improprieties.
Yeah, I don't like it at all, and I just.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with our forwarding, drafting and forwarding a letter to all the same recipients of that and just indicating.
And I don't know how you find out, because it says 53. Some of them are on the lawsuit, some are not, so it's carry.
53 or 59, I thought I read.
That's 53, mine.
This was a letter that
Yeah.
went out to anyone that had been part of a lawsuit. Is that-
Well, no, not necessarily.
They
This
should have
were-
withdrawn
It really should have
also, but
sent to you.
Anyone with protested property or on the lawsuit.
But it's more than what you guys negotiated for the county, it's what I kind of find odd. Some people are getting paid that, what you guys are getting for the county in 1 year, $400,000, that's what they're getting offered to buy their home. I think that kind of
Well,
goes to
actually, some of the
negotiation.
people are getting more by just
Yep.
their offers than the people who actually have leases, but that's none of my business, I
Yeah.
don't care. But I would just think, even if we went back to the Doyles, I mean, it's just crazy.
The reason I just opposed the last motion was based on some of this, based on knowing that they could afford the extra $2 million when they could put it in the pilot program ahead of time and achieve $4,000 a megawatt hour. It
Yeah.
would have actually been achievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, okay, so, I guess enough said, but.
So that's our cure, is to send out a letter to everyone that had received this?
Sure. Yes, I guess it is, because to that extent, again, we're not the parties who originated the letter. But if there's a concern based on what was read into the record, that, hey, it gives a sense that we're in some way participatory with this, we're
Yeah,
not.
we're-
And obviously, you didn't even know about it, nor did I. That was something that was sent out to all of these different, I'll call them stakeholders, because it's people outside the footprint within a certain distance, as I recall. But it is an all or nothing. If all of them don't agree, then it doesn't happen for anyone. So that's their solution to trying to resolve the lawsuit, I guess, from their perspective.
There's another just concerning moment. It's just, I ran into somebody that I didn't hear about it. It wasn't part of the lawsuit, and says, well, dang it, I should have been part of that lawsuit.
Mhm.
And it's like, do we really want to encourage that? I mean, seriously?
Yeah, I just think it was really bad judgment all the way around. I mean, actually, of course, it's their proposal, I don't wanna dissect it, but I mean, just as a layperson, I could look at it and see some things on the fly. But, you know, it's just crazy what they're doing, and I just don't wanna be, I'm just saying, I just don't wanna have
Yeah.
a part of that, that's all.
Would it be best for us to send out something or them, ask them to retract that part?
Either way, we'll get you to the same place. Our sending out something is easily done, and we control the time frame of that. The problem is, I don't have the full mailing address list.
That I can provide you.
So we could do that. If that would, you know, at least provide some assurance that the commission wasn't involved with that. And again, we don't have to be. To the extent that they have the ability to go out and make an offer to try to resolve this issue, they can do that, and they did.
And they did.
But your concern, at least the one that you're raising, where I understand it, is if you get someone who gets that letter, scans through it, and sees a reference to the county commission, may perhaps feel, even though again that's just interpretation, that, well, wait a minute, is this all
Well, that's
something
just
that's
it.
going to
The average person's gonna read something into that, I'm afraid, if we don't.
Too late, it's already done now.
Well, if you send this out, at least you've gone ahead and said, hey, I want to be sure everyone knows now that we're aware of it and have discussed it in
There's
the
nothing wrong
meeting.
with doing the extra mile.
Yeah, that the county was not participatory in that, and don't have to be.
Who sends out the letter? The county or you?
Well, it'll be.
That would be the county in that
Okay.
particular case, if we send it on your
Be
behalf,
cheaper.
yeah.
And there's so much misinformation out there already. I mean, there's so much misinformation, so any part of it that we can correct, or at least step aside from, I think is beneficial to the county.
And I'm gonna need a copy of the document that you were reading from, or the minutes, and since you
Yeah,
discussed
'cause
it.
I've never seen it.
Probably ought to
Do you-
redact anything that's personal.
Can you
We
send
don't
us
get
all a
ourselves in
copy of
trouble.
that?
Okay, what'd you say? Well, no, she sent it out to lots of people, so, there's no confidentiality in that. I mean, after you send it out to 20 people, I think the confidentiality is
Yeah,
broken.
that's waived. And I probably will draft that letter, and before I send it out, just to be sure that we do this in a measured way, you have a chance to see it before I do send it out, so I'll have it on the agenda.
And be firm, never again.
Well, do you think that they
Amy?
interjected this because?
You be asked to speak.
Sorry, did
Go
you just
ahead.
ask my question? So since they sent out the settlement offer to the people that were on the lawsuit and they intervened in the lawsuit, and that's kind of why your guys' name is in part of the settlement thing, because you guys are part of the lawsuit. I wonder if you guys are thinking ahead as far as validity to that lawsuit, or just continue to just go on and not think about it.
I personally, I don't know if I understand your question 100%, but I'm just protecting myself
Sure.
from my position and my constituents. I'm not saying I side with anybody. I just don't
No.
want to be drawn into something that I had no control over and,
Right.
you know, had no part of negotiating. And I don't like other people making decisions for me, you know, or taking, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I guess I
didn't
just wanted to
I
understand
guess
your
it
question.
would have been nice if the full commission would have had access to that before it was sent, but
Yeah.
we didn't.
Yeah.
And like Brad said, you didn't have to.
Mhm. Yeah, but for receiving a copy from one of the people who was a recipient, I wouldn't have known about it either.
I wouldn't have known. I didn't know.
And I'm not being critical of that. Again, they have the right to negotiate as they see fit. It's just a question of making sure that everyone understands from whence that comes and who's being bound.
Okay, these 2 pages. Okay, that's what I wanted to bring up to the commission again.
Okay. Well, we need to move on. Next item on the agenda is reorganization of planning commission discussion. Sharon's with us, so.
And I put that on the agenda.
You put that on?
I put that on only
Okay.
because of time. We're getting close to the end of the year. We have 5 commissions now. I have one of my appointees who resigned. And before I go out start looking or anything like that, I'd like to know how we're going to reorganize so that I can start, looking at whatever. Now that we're 5, I'll just go ahead and say my piece. I think by reading statute and things, and you can always correct me, that we should go to a 15-member board now to where we each have 3, just like we have. I have done a lot of research on it, called a lot of counties, and the statute simply says a minimum of 9 members, and the other counties have anywhere from 9 to 22 members of their planning and zoning. So I'm just thinking that we need to establish that, and then establish how we want to, or if we want to, how we want to go ahead and select these extra people, or however. So that's why I put it on.
Bring up one thing, and it probably will get brought up as far as not being able to fill all vacancies. If we could have some language in there that would go along with that, if there is nobody appointed to that position, they aren't part of the quorum to make up those meetings. Until that seat is filled, that number doesn't become relevant to meet the quorum.
And the minimum amount is 9.
Minimum by statute, yes.
So you can chime in, Sharon.
Marion County resolution says 9, 3 from each district, but I don't know that the state statute is 9. It's.
Yeah, I mean, I just want you to be able to continue and have a quorum
Right.
until, others are added.
Right. Don't want to be able to.
But it doesn't take effect anyway till January, I think, right?
Right, January.
And that Marion County needs to be rewritten anyway, right?
We would need to have a resolution that supersedes the existing one.
With that, I lose 2 members, that's active members, to 2 different districts. And so, yeah, you could do that. I mean, I'm just saying they've got a voted term now and that they're supposed to be there, so.
We would end up reorganizing it more formally. I mean, we'd spread through that whole process and redo whose positions or what, trying to honor the amount that they're currently committed to. But if we couldn't, we just have to redo it.
Well, couldn't we just have one appointee from your district and then have 2 at large?
Mm-hmm.
Because typically the best person for the job doesn't always live in your district.
Yeah, and you absolutely can do that as you see fit. There's nothing that precludes that I know of in the statute that purpose. The point's well taken that right now the way our resolution reads, it's 3 times 3. Well, wait a minute, now we have 5. Now what are we supposed to do? So we do need to address it one way or another. It's just a question of being able to
It could be an
increase.
issue adding that many more. It's not easy to get people to take that.
That's why I wanted to address that wouldn't interfere with the quorum, so as long as they have.
Yeah, as long as Sharon can
There
continue
was 10 appointees.
operate.
5 showed up.
Can
Start the meeting.
Can I throw this out there too? Logistically, not a lot of planning commissions have 15. 15 is a rather large number to get into a meeting room and have everyone be able to see and hear everyone, as well as have room for people attending the meeting. Would you consider maybe 2 from each district and then the chairman not voting? That would give you 9 voting, and then each district would still be able to appoint 2 members.
Like 1
Yeah, one could be, right, 1 from your district and 1 from, or a total of 5 at large.
The only concern I would have there is the determination as to who's a participatory valid member for purposes of voting rests with this board. That means 10 if you go with the 2, which could lead to tie votes. And I understand your point, well, we won't have a tie if we have one of them. But the determination as to who's the chair and then not voting would go to your board and take that authority away from here, and I think there's a problem there. So we're stuck with doing one of really 2 things. Either you go to 1 each and reduce it to a 5-member board, and then do some, I'd have to look at that in terms of the at-large as how we could do that, and then whether that would be collectively appointed, or we go to stay with the same system and do 3, and we could make some alterations to that. So you're appointing 3, but they don't necessarily have to be from your particular jurisdiction.
So could you do 1 from each district, and then the additionals would be at large?
Collectively appointed at large by a majority vote of anyone you could nominate, and it would be by a majority vote of this body. Follow what I'm saying?
But could we do it, I wanna make sure I understand. So even if you do 2 at large, let's use me for an example. So I appoint 1 from my district. So then I would still have 2 appointees, but I could appoint them at large.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not
If
like,
we went with 3, for example,
okay, so you would still have each commissioner.
being
having
responsible
3.
for 3,
Okay, got it.
if you did it that way.
That's what I was asking. Thank you.
We have to get an odd number somehow.
Yes.
Otherwise, you get that fight, and we don't have any tiebreakers established in our system.
Like Sharon said, 15 can be a little cumbersome when you're talking about
It is a large
space
number.
and,
No place in Marion County to have a meeting.
and, well, it's probably not so much that, and then additional administrative, additional, you know,
Copy costs, the
copy
whole nine.
costs and all that.
But I find that to be minimal sacrifice when you realize the importance of planning and zoning. I mean, that actually determines what happens and doesn't happen within the county, what people may and may not do, and so on, so.
I guess I'm gonna go on with the vote 3 to 5 was, people had more representation.
Mhm.
I think it trickles through.
What's commission's consensus? How large do we want that board to be, I guess, at this point? I mean, I'd like to see, I think we need to have every district represented, but whether that's 1, whether that's 2, whether that's 3, and then how many at-large positions?
I think it would be chaotic if we went more than 3 total.
Well, yeah, I
So-
agree with that.
So you're saying 3?
Three
would be-
per commission, per district.
So
But
you're-
one district, 2 at large.
So
Mine-
For each district, it'd be 15 members.
Yeah.
That's a big board.
Can you do 2 for each district?
But he just
Each
said that you
commissioner
can't
one.
really do that.
Well,
The commission have 1 at large.
You can do it that way too, as long as we get to an odd number.
We get an appointment.
Right.
We each get 2 of our own choice, and 1 as a
And
group.
1 at large. The thing is, if you have 1 that you appoint from your district and then 2 at large, not every district may be represented equally. You could have 5 at large from 1 district.
So why wouldn't you have all of them from your district?
But the point, I think that if I'm reading Jonah right, it's not necessarily when he's suggesting at large, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is just what I'm hearing from you. The object of the game is to get the most qualified person. Not that necessarily in your district, you're not gonna have 10 hands come up and say, yeah, I don't have nothing to do on Thursday night. The object is to get the most qualified person, and maybe that qualified, and I think that's what you said, isn't always in your district.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna sit in the seat forever, so I mean, I don't really wanna set something up for failure, but I would try to find those people within that district, but I would like to be able to find the most qualified outside that district, if they don't live within my district.
I was gonna say it's qualified, willing and able, because
Yeah.
are they willing to come, are they able to come?
It's a commitment.
Yeah.
For sure, that's what I'm saying, that's why.
I guess what are you considering as qualified would be a good question too. You know, I think the representation is pretty important geographically.
Yeah.
So qualifications mean that they have a familiarity with the process and the zoning regulations, which if you can read and,
And that's pretty much on-the-job training.
yeah, that's true.
Qualified would be to the discretion of commissioners.
Right.
What they deem to a point qualified, I guess. I wouldn't say it has to be ABC, you know, just say, that allows you, in your own right, to pick who you think is best.
Personally, I'd like to see it somewhat less than 15.
Well, with 2 with each commission, and then 1 at large from the commission, approved by the commission,
You'd have 11 members.
you'd have 11-member board.
Could that at large be like the chairperson that you're appointing?
No,
You
just
know
a
what I mean?
member.
If you
No, just a
wanted to.
member, just a, so you all have a vote.
The committee has to elect a chair
Yeah.
amongst themselves.
And that's where I'm at.
Motion.
Two from each district and an at-large. That's where I'm at. It's up for further discussion.
Or it's not, you're not necessarily having to do something with it today. If you want to kind of mull it over a little bit, having had this discussion, I will look and see what's done by a lot of the surrounding counties. Not that many have moved from 3 to 5 like we just did, so there's probably not a lot of choices there. But I can kind of look through that and see what the pros and cons of different alternatives are, hearing what I've heard today.
Is there a deadline?
Well, we need to do it before the end of the year,
Okay.
because those appointments will have to be made, and we're gonna have to get a resolution reorganizing by then.
We need to have time too to look for people and ask people
That's right.
if they turn us down.
So I would
find
say, you
somebody
know,
else.
we probably would wanna,
Does any of
as
your
soon as we
members
can.
change from your district?
Yeah, because
Yeah, a bear is on right now, again, depending on how many choices I have.
No, he's meaning by the lines.
I have
It's
one in
already-
my district. Somebody, you're gonna have to replace two.
I've got two, see, there's gonna be, and one's gonna be his, and one's gonna be in his, and that's why I was wondering, who else has that problem?
I don't.
You don't?
No, only,
You
no,
don't?
I have one.
You have one that's moving to another district?
No, I have one that's right in my district.
The other two are not.
I only have one appointment to make
Yeah, but there's
when I
still-
came on. And so, I believe the other one is in your district now.
Sure it is.
Can I interject a question? We have, so the current planning commission members are allowed to run for 3 consecutive 3-year terms if they so choose. So if some of them have not ran out their term limits,
Right.
I'm not sure that we can boot them off. So there's a phasing
There's another
system.
question. Yes.
There's a phasing that
That's what
goes
this question's all
along with
about.
this as well.
We've already, but see, Brad already answered that question last year when we had the fiasco. They are allowed to run for 3 consecutive terms if they're appointed by the board of that district. It doesn't guarantee them an appointment, but if they want to, they can volunteer, just like anybody else in my district can volunteer, but that doesn't ensure that they get to keep that seat warm for another term.
Oh,
So, and Brad had already clarified that last year.
yeah, but I'm thinking,
No, no.
what are we gonna do to them?
This is all
that these
appointed by
people,
the
this Kent's got one, I've got 2, what are we gonna do to them? Are we gonna kick them off if these other 2 new commissioners wants 2 different areas, 2 different people? I mean, to me, that's not where I wanna be. But, yeah, what are you gonna do with them to let them run their terms out? And
That was my question. When you refer to 2 that have gone into 2 other jurisdictions,
Yeah.
they haven't run their full 3-year term that they're currently appointed for.
Yeah.
I haven't worked through that at all.
That's one of them.
What if they don't like the new commissioner?
What if you,
Just saying.
what if you went to 1 in the district and 2 at large? That would resolve both those situations.
And then if it was me, if it was happening to me, suppose one of Randy Dalkey's appointees had not run his 3-year term and was in my district, it would seem to me as it would be just courtesy to allow him to
That's
serve
what-
that term.
Yeah.
Right, that's what
So,
I'm
and then when
concerned
it
about.
expires, then I
Then it
could.
could, right, it comes to that
That to me
commissioner,
would be the
yes.
right thing to do in that case.
Yeah. And then the 3-year terms, what happens, since this goes on and we have it at large, and we can't fill our own, okay, so then I know of a good person that's, I don't know which one of the best people that's on there is gonna be, because they're all good, but what I'm saying is, one of them goes off and I can't fill mine, so I might take that at large and go see, that would be a new appointment for me, but yet it'd be his 4th term or her term, whichever. So could they do that? That's another one.
No.
Well, it's gonna run with the individual, so 3, unless you change it, make it unlimited term. They've served for 3 terms. It's not by appointment, it is by how many years have you, Joe Smith, been on there.
And I don't mind it.
Well, I think we need to let Brad take a look at
So,
that.
I want the
much as I
commission to be
wish
fair
it
with
was.
that, because there's some
Hate to
good
throw
people
it
that
at
serve
him,
to
but
3-year terms
And it's time to move
that
on.
deserve to be back on if they want to stay on, if they want to.
It depends if you believe in term limits or not.
Yeah.
The other thing you might contemplate, I don't see a problem with your at-large, but Sharon's point's well taken. I've had that happen before, where what you're insured of doing it with 1 in from each jurisdiction is that you could have 5 that are representing the entire county. That's great. And then somehow it just happens to be, you've got a wealth of talent in Logan Township. And so suddenly you've got 10 who are sitting over there, and they have a very different view, as we've already seen in terms of wind energy, depending on where you're placed in the county. So you want to give some thought to that as well.
So basically then what we would be doing based on what you just said, it would be 2, you'd have to appoint 2 in our district and 1 at large.
Yeah, that would limit that a bit more.
Yeah.
If you, but
Okay.
again, that still puts you at 15. So you got several things that you're gonna have to consider. How big do you want this thing to get? And also, you know, in terms of 15 versus 9. And then how many do you want to be able to appoint with no consideration of locale or geography?
Because I think we're gonna have to, because it's just hard to fill some of these.
Yeah.
It really is. Plus, it's gonna be hard to get it filled by the end of the year, because a lot of people will say, talk to me after the first of the year, I'm busy.
Well, and that's one of the reasons I brought up now, because you wanna give people a chance to get out there and find.
Sure, and I'm gonna need a list of who all is on, where they're from, when their
I
term,
was
their
just gonna
current
say, if
term
you
runs.
did 2 at large, or say you did 2 in your district and 1 at large, or 1 in the district and 2 at large, that would cover, like you were saying, but then also you could just write a meeting stipulation of a minimum of 9 people to hold the meeting, because you have conflicts, obviously, with 9 or whatever you have right now. Some people can't go to those meetings or whatever, so then that way you just have to have.
Right, and that's what I was getting to,
Yeah.
when I was saying that not
Not all
every
50.
seat had to be filled in order to have a quorum. It
Well,
would reduce your
we,
number.
I think we
Do
can
that,
work,
Brad?
we can work toward a direction and get this figured out.
Because sometimes too, that's a good point, I never thought about that, because some people have expertise in certain subject matters more so than others.
Yeah.
And they would probably spark an interest to attend certain meetings, so, I mean, I don't know, that's an interesting concept.
Mine was more about filled or vacancy, not whether or not they choose to be there that night.
Well, I would choose somebody that would be at least active enough to show up.
Again, there's the pragmatic
Now,
there
101.
versus the, what I'll term as legal. As you were saying, some of them may have a real interest in certain things more so than others. If I set a minimum standard, and I'm not sure I can, of a quorum of no less than 7 to conduct a meeting, you could get situations where the 7 attending are only interested in one topic on one side of it, the others aren't available, and you still have a quorum. So you can skew things that way as well. That's part of the reason that we use the standard quorum requirements across the board. And I haven't even looked statutorily to see if it's even illegal or not.
See, that's another good point. That's, I mean, that's another good point.
Yep.
Yeah, I do like the 15 though, because you get more minds in there and more apt not to have all these little scenarios happening, the more people you have.
I just really want to be clear that what I meant was vacancy.
Yeah, I do understand.
Doesn't count towards quorum.
Absolutely understand.
Okay. So will be discussed further?
I have that resolution for the lease purchase.
Okay. Did we actually vote on it?
Yeah, we did.
You voted to do the.
Okay, this was the resolution number,
Corresponding resolution.
Right.
corresponding resolution number 2019-22, a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Marion County declaring the intent to enter a lease purchase agreement with the purpose of financing a portion of the costs of the acquisition, construction, improvement, remodeling, and equipping of a new and existing solid waste disposal facilities. So we need to sign now.
That needs to be adopted, actually. You voted to do it, but now you have to adopt the
Okay, we need
resolution.
to adopt this
Yeah, sorry about
resolution
that.
number 2019-22.
Make that motion to adopt that resolution.
Okay,
Second.
okay. And, motion made by Randy, seconded by Dave to approve resolution number 2019-22. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
That was the one we already approved, right? I know, I think I said no with that one.
Yeah, you said it.
I said no.
4-1. So it's 4-1?
4-1.
Okay.
It's just, to go out and sequence.
Okay, that's the last item on the agenda. We are gonna come back after lunch, but that would be an executive session for personnel performance, so I'll open it up to any public comments. Any public comments?
No, you can all leave.
If not, we're gonna recess for lunch until, we must be back at 1.
Great.
You come back at 1:30 or?
You wanna come back at 1:30? Will that work for everybody?
Yeah.
I can be here until 3:30 again, and I think we can probably take care of it in that amount of time. At what time? You have a meeting at 1 o'clock? Well,
Or do you want to do it a different day? We could schedule time on Wednesday, on payday, if the board wants to.
would you wanna move this to payday?
Oh, well, I don't have a problem with whatever the board wants to do.
The department head evaluations? Dave has a conflict at 1.
Okay.
We could do it on payday, just make our meeting,
Is that
it'll last
Wednesday?
30
How long
minutes,
is- how long is
most
that
of the
gonna-
morning. That work?
What does that do to the schedule on Wednesday though? Does that put us just basically like repeat of today?
Well, payday, right, as of right now, unless the board decides to change it, the only thing that we generally do on payday is just approve
We
payday.
pay bills.
So it's relatively
It's short, and so
Yeah.
if you decided
It
to.
could be 30 minutes or less. I mean, I'm fine with it either way.
Or you could go, just come back and do
Or
it
we
today
can-
without Dave.
We can come back, it just will be less Dave.
I'd like to.
And I know Dave hasn't, you know, he's a new member, so, you know, these are evaluations that basically the 3 of us, so it's up to everybody. I'm available this afternoon.
Can we go for
Were you planning
a
on being
shorter
here?
executive, just to discuss, the personnel? That would be,
You mean after lunch?
no, like right now.
Oh, personnel performance?
No, for 5 minutes, just to discuss.
Oh, are you asking for
What's
an
left?
executive session?
Yeah.
You're asking for an executive session right now
Yeah, I just didn't know. if we
for
could,
discussion of,
evaluating department heads to,
evaluate, department head evaluation.
yeah, just, for some clarity.
You cannot call one for general discussion of evaluation of department heads.
Yeah,
It
well-
must be one particular department head, or you're breaking the law.
Is that what you're asking for?
I'm gonna leave it there, and we'll just do a payday.
No, because each one of the department heads are evaluated individually. So if you just have a general question,
Then ask
go
in
ahead.
general and public.
How many do we have left?
3.
Am I breaking any rules by asking which ones?
Is there a problem with that? Health department, planning and zoning, and, I don't remember the other one,
EMS maybe?
EMS.
Okay, so it'll be those 3, yeah.
And of course, the process is good for the new ones to see, even though you don't have any history.
I have no problem, probably an hour and a half, probably extending the meeting for payday. Just that way we don't do it, get it done.
Okay? Okay, if that works for everything, we will schedule the department head evaluations to commence after payday, meeting following payday on Wednesday, 27th.
We'll just do that as a motion. Just,
Okay?
I'd make that motion to put the last of the department head evaluation on right after payday. Second, be Wednesday.
Okay. Moved and seconded to move the department head evaluation to payday, November the 27th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We will move it to then. That being the final agenda item, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
you have another question?
Second,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
seconded by Dave. All those in favor?
We're looking at it.
Aye.
Wait, leave
I thought you had
myself.
another question.
No,
Services from.
This is just.
could that be, possibly be European land right? Yep.
I didn't get something in that drawer. Excuse me.
Simplicity.
You get much more than a crazy than that.
This is Bob, just
That
give you a little,
sounds
give you a
fine.
little extra room.
Yeah, see, look at all that, I am equipped. Yeah, and we do all have this in our drawer, and depending on what promotion you make going into executive session,
Always
one
personnel.
probably what we do with this one, the personnel matters of non-elected, yeah, which executive session. But, all these different categories.
Did Bryce give you an extra set of whatever that had maps and
Call
stuff in
anybody
it?
out by name.
Did you have one for me?
I'll give you mine.
I didn't know too.
You mean on that?
Remember, I didn't know
Doyle, Doyle.
Yes.
I was just told that.
I wish I
want
needed
people
it.
to know where I stand.
Yeah, here you go.
But, okay, I understand it.
So I don't know.